Roll call.
Counselor Johnson,
Here.
Counselor Savola,
Here.
Counselor Ellithorpe,
Here.
Mayor Becker,
Here.
Ms. DeClaire.
Modifications to agenda. Nothing. Approval of consent agenda. Minutes from the regular meeting and review and approval of accounts payable.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Nita?
Counselor Savola,
Aye.
Counselor Ellithorpe,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Becker,
Aye.
motion carries.
Proclamations, communications, and appointments. Number one on the list, appointment of council for vacant seat.
I guess I feel at this time I'd like to move to put that off until the next meeting, until council can have an opportunity to visit with the folks who wrote us letters. I just feel like I would like more time to get to know both of you.
So that's a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, is that a tabling for a date certain?
I would like to table it until the next meeting.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and do the interviews then, or have interviews prior?
I would like to have interviews prior.
Calendar. Who's got a calendar? What's going on?
Yeah.
Nita?
I'm getting there. How soon would you guys like to hold those interviews?
I would say next week, since our next meeting will be on the 3rd, I believe.
I'm open.
Okay. So you can either do Monday or Thursday?
Of next week.
Thursday the 26th?
Oh, not Thursday, sorry. The Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of next week.
I'm good for Monday or Tuesday.
I'm out of town on, actually Monday and Tuesday.
We can do it Tuesday before the meeting.
That would work well. Tuesday prior.
Tuesday the 1st.
Before the meeting?
No, Tuesday we'd have a work session
Oh, okay.
for that. Does that work on the calendar?
You gonna be here, Gary?
On the 1st?
Oh, first. Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
first.
that's fine.
I'm good with that.
So just for your information, Mr. Mayor, there is a Monte Vista URA meeting that night at 7, which I don't think it depends on the extent of your interview time.
Those usually last about an hour, huh?
So either council goes before, or we might be able to postpone the start of that a little bit.
Okay, we'll vote on that, the URA meeting on the 1st.
All right, we better change that. I don't think we can interview too. What about Wednesday, the 2nd?
Wednesday is good for me.
I can make that work.
Can you make that work? Okay.
Wednesday? Does that work with you
At what
folks?
time?
6 work?
6?
May 2nd at 6 p.m.
Yes, ma'am. You need to change your motion to reflect that.
And that will be here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I move that we interview on Wednesday, May the 2nd, for the seat. And then the decision will be presented at the next council meeting. which is the 5th?
Third.
Third.
To
Oh,
the
the
third.
3rd,
Next day.
3rd. There you go.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. Do we have a interview work session on Wednesday, May 2nd? Is there any discussion
At 6?
at 6? Nita?
Counselor Johnson,
Right?
Counselor Segala,
Aye.
Counselor Elliport,
Aye.
Mayor Becker,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Arbor Day proclamation. Is that Rob?
Actually, Mayor, if you want to read it to everyone, and then we have our chairman of the tree board, Mr. Shelf is here, and he can say a few words.
Kirby, you wanna read it?
Here you go.
I can give it to him.
If we're gonna put him on the spot, let's put him on the spot.
All right, let's do it.
I gotta get my glasses on?
Except it says I, Dale Becker, Mayor, proclaim, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and.
Oh, I can,
Sorry,
sorry,
Mayor, you're stuck with that one.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling cost, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are renewable resources giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Dale Becker, Mayor of the City of Monte Vista, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018, Arbor Day in the City of Monte Vista, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the hearts and promote well-being of this future generation. Dated the 19th of April in the year 2018. Mr. Shaw.
Well, the Monte Vista Tree Board in the city of Monte Vista and the Kids Connection is actually gonna do the Arbor Day celebration on Friday, April 27th, 10 a.m. at Marsh Park, if anybody wants to join us. So we're gonna be planting 4 trees that we got a grant for from the Colorado Tree Coalition. And so it's at 10 o'clock at Marsh Park on the 27th, for those that wanna join us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Self. Marsh Park is the one over by,
Sonic.
okay. Oath of office. Chief Rosecrans.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Officer Huff, Harford, and Cisneros, please. Come on. Get the, come on around, fellas. All right. So, I'd actually like you guys to introduce yourselves to everybody. This is my code officer, brand new, Jeff Huff. Brand new street patrol officer, Tyler Harford, and Ezekiel Cisneros, also a patrolman. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, you gave you my name already. My wife Christy in the back. We're parents of 3. A couple of them in their 20s and another one 18 here, Adams State. Pretty humble, retired state prison guard from Pennsylvania originally. Moved out to Las Vegas, Nevada about 8 years ago. And humbly, I'm here to try to help out the community in any way, shape, or form I can. And the chief and these fine gentlemen that really help me daily. So I just appreciate everything. Thank you. I am the better half.
My wife Lacey. I live in Saguache. I've been in law enforcement for 6 years, and I look forward to working with the officers in the community.
Anybody want to bring up or introduce?
Have my mom and my 4 kids, Oakley, Reese, Haley, and Bradley.
You guys want to come up?
Come on. Come on. Wow.
Born and raised in Monte Vista. Excited to actually help out my community. Excited to work with an awesome group of guys. I'm just excited to be here and have an opportunity.
Kind of a wealth of knowledge, like you said, significant years in DOC, dealing with people, sometimes a little bit problematic. Very good orator. He just says he's not very smart all the time, but he pretty much gets people to do what he needs to get done. Tyler, lucky to get him. Like you said, he came out of Swatch, been on patrol all your career, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's got a lot of street experience. He's learning the streets and getting used to the area, but we're happy to have him. And Jeff's already pinned his badge. I see you have his. Do the honor. Stab him. And Zeke, we're lucky to have him as well. He's got a couple years of experience in the jail. Again, you know how to deal with people. That's very helpful. He has the next generations of Monty right here, and I think that's going to matter to him a lot when he's out there cleaning up the streets. So that's awesome. Who would you like to have for 10 years? Mama? He's tough.
So you dropped blood, then you know Zeke was out of control today.
We might be here all night,
It
guys.
can be tricky. But I don't know.
You'd have to wait all night, huh?
All right.
Awesome, thank you. You guys want to go sit down? Thank you for doing that. Meet you. Thank you. This is where it gets serious. All right. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name. Good job. Do solemnly swear or affirm.
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
Under the penalty of perjury.
Under the penalty of perjury.
That I will support the Constitution.
I will support the Constitution.
And the laws of the United States of America.
And the laws of the United States of America.
And of the state of Colorado.
And the state of Colorado.
And the charter and ordinances of the city of Monte Vista.
And the charter and ordinances of the city of Monte Vista.
And the county of Rio Grande.
And the county of Rio Grande.
And that I will faithfully perform.
And I will faithfully perform
The duties of police officer, code enforcement officer.
the duties of police officer,
Code enforcement.
For the city of Monte Vista.
for the city of Monte Vista.
In the county of Rio Grande.
In the county of Rio Grande.
To which I have been appointed.
To which I have been appointed.
And upon which I am about to enter.
Upon which I'm about to enter.
Awesome. Good. Congratulations.
picture?
Need a picture?
You guys all wanna do one?
Just wanna come on around? They're shy. They're so shy.
This is about you guys.
Come on, just for a minute.
These are your boys.
Wait till you. I have to do it.
Why?
Yeah.
You guys gotta work together, don't be afraid to stand closer.
It's the mannequin challenge.
Nice. Very
Thank
nice.
you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Thanks, guys, appreciate you guys.
Stay up.
Appreciate it.
Here you go. We
Outstanding
are
service.
fully
award.
staffed right now.
Fully staffed.
Yeah.
Got a little work to do, but we're fully staffed.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So not to jump ahead, but I know what's next.
Yep, that's next, go right ahead.
Tell them what you did. This is pretty cool.
Well, what are we talking about?
Good
That's
things,
all right.
man, good things.
The cat food.
Oh, well, I had a call to was a shoplifting at Safeway. An elderly lady had stolen some cat food. She couldn't afford to pay for it, and the store did want her charged, and we issued her a summons and stuff like that. After we had cleared and released her, I went ahead and purchased her food for her cats and stuff like that. I'm an animal lover, so she told me that there's no reason for the cat to suffer, so I just bought her that food.
Awesome.
Out of his own pocket, didn't tell a soul. The only reason I found out about it is because the judge told me. She was shocked. She came over and talked to me. Michael didn't want any recognition, but I think that's the kind of thing that happens every day out there. I don't hear about it. These guys care about the community. They go above and beyond every day, and that's really awesome. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, chief. Thank you, officers, appreciate you guys.
Thank you,
Very
guys.
much. Thank you.
Yes.
Azarel, where's she hiding? Social media report?
Yeah. So hi, Mr. Mayor, City Council. So I drafted a quick report with some graphics on the kind of general foot traffic that the city social media pages are receiving, primarily Facebook, and also the city website, which since it launched, we have not really, well, I mean, I've been tracking progress, but it hasn't really been presented. So the first couple charts that you see in your report are regarding the city website, and I think primarily two of the things I would like to point out is our most visited pages, the top three being city jobs, utility billing, and the police department. On average, the city website has about 1,000 people in foot traffic, which is pretty good for a municipality our size. In addition, I would like to point out, just for future endeavors, that out of all the visits that we've been getting on the city website, about 50% have come from like a regular desktop, but most of them, the second half, has been from mobile devices. And I just think that's really important to consider, and moving forward, if the city ever decides to switch to a different company, that we assure that we have a website that's mobile accessible, since that seems to be one of the ways that our citizens hop on there for information. As for the city social media pages, on the back end of things, we moved to a more uniform public information record keeping style for all four pages, being the general city page, the police department page, the recreations page, and the kids connections page. In some of the general information charts that I printed off, some of the things that we have seen is that our foot traffic has drastically increased in the past 2 years in particular. Some of that because of some internal changes about the way we post things, kind of looking at data, making them more like visually attractive, more eye-catching, making sure that things get around to other groups to ensure that this information is getting out to all Monte Vista citizens. And I guess, do you have any questions for me regarding that?
I do not, but you're doing a really good job and I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. And I guess just the second thing I would like to add is you will be receiving a memo from me regarding the Downtown Colorado Inc. Conference that I attended last week. But one thing that I wanted to talk about is as part of this conference, they take on challenge studios where different city and towns around the world get to present a challenge, and then the conference will surround that municipality with subject experts. This year I was selected as a subject expert for social media, and I actually got to help the city of Lamar. And it's really interesting to look at not just Lamar, but other municipalities and where they're at with their websites and social media. And in the past 2 years, the city of Monte Vista has really upped their game, and we're doing really, really good in making sure to have accessible information, easy to use websites, maintaining, keeping up with information. So just wanted to mention that we're really, really good in that area compared to other cities.
All right, good work.
All right, and that's all for me.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brothers Keepers Motorcycle Club. Mr. Deacon.
Hi, for some of you that don't know who I am, I'm Scott Deacon. A little bit about myself. I've lived here all my life. I have been associated with the Monte Vista Fire Department for 37 years. I've been on the Monte Vista Fire Protection Board for 15 years, riding a motorcycle for 60. I'm 65 years old and I've been riding one for 60 years. I'm here for a proposal. The Brothers Keepers is a fire department international club. It was formed to help and do generous things for people, and our chapter was formed in 2013. It's the first chapter west of the Mississippi, and I'm the secretary-treasurer. Alfred Mondragon is the vice president, and Matt Cordova is the president. And we have a run every year, which we gather motorcycles and do a poker run and that kind of stuff. Well, they started talking about it this year, and right away they started talking about Cole Park and Alamos. I'm also a member of the Early Iron Car Club. And I got very vocal with them. I told them we need to take it to Monte. And so what I'm proposing is, and I've already set all this up, I'm just here to ask you guys some favors. It's the first annual Brothers Keepers Motorcycle Chapter 19, Thunder in the Valley. And what we're going to do is on June 16th, we're planning on having a rally at the bowling alley. And we also want to incorporate Gabe Duran's business because we're going to have stuff in there. And what I'm asking is if we could close Jefferson from 2nd, just past the 2nd driveway on the bowling alley, half a block. Just close that area, and I'm asking to close it at 7 o'clock on the 16th, and we would reopen it at midnight. Because what we're looking at is a full-blown rally. We're gonna have, I've contacted the Harley-Davidson dealer out of Pueblo. They're bringing 2 bikes and a simulator. And we've got several business. Gosser Sausage is gonna be there to serve food. We're gonna have Stars serving food. I talked to Chef Charles. He thinks he's gonna be able to set up. We're charging each one of the booths like $50. And the thing that we all discussed was where do we want to put the money. And this is what we came up with. We're going to put it to the San Luis Valley Veterans Coalition. And I got in contact with Richard Negley, and he's been totally helpful with the whole deal. And he's all in, and we're going to do a radio deal on, I think it's the 8th. But I wanted to come to you guys and see what you thought, and there's another deal in this that the Monday after our run, 7 of us are leaving for North Carolina on our motorcycles, because the Brothers Keepers National International meeting and convention is in North Carolina. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna sell Monte Vista for the next year for the national rally for Brothers Keepers Motorcycle Club. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's, and the club, when a lot of people see this that I'm wearing, what you might say is we're 99%ers. And the 1% is outlaw, and we're not that, no way. But we have to work to get, along with those clubs. But I'm really excited if we can. We're all gung-ho, and we want to bring that to Monty next year. And what we would do is we would put that on like the second week in June, and then come back again with the Thunder in the Valley 2, and we want to continue it. And we're all in the point that I went and I met with the new owner of Drango Harley Davidson. And he just bought all the rights for the Four Corners Iron Horse Run. And he was all in. When I went in and told him what I was doing, he told me, he said, that is excellent. He said, I can't do it this year, but this is in his territory. But he said, next year I'll sponsor you, I'll be there. And I mean, it's big time when you get one of the Harley Davidson shops to go all in for you. And it almost brings tears to my eyes, because like I said, I've been a fireman all my life and a motorcycle rider, and I just, this is kind of a brainchild that I've had to, and I'm not saying I a lot, the other guys, they just they just wanted to go to Alamosa, but it's in Monty and it's going to stay in Monty, so, but I just came to you guys to see if there's a possibility that we could close that street, and the reason for it is foot traffic and, back and forth to Gabe's. We're going to have a pinstriper. Matt Beckner with Ion Graphics is going to be in Gabe's shop pinstriping, and we're going to have a bike show. And I've already got some two biker build-off bikes coming from Denver. And then I talked to Barton, and they want to set their crane up and do rides up on a 100-foot stick. They got a man deal and bring in money that way for the veterans. And like I said, we're all in for the veterans. And thank you for listening to me. I know I'm winded, but
Aren't you asking for a donation?
Pardon?
Aren't you going to ask for a donation?
Yeah, I was gonna. I was wondering. I know the budgets are tight and everything, but. Regular sponsors are like $100, but I was wondering if you guys could maybe put a couple of $100 our way for this, and it will go directly to it's all gonna. And another thing I didn't mention is when I became Secretary Treasurer, I right away made it. It's a 501c3 or 3C3. It's a nonprofit, and it's registered with the federal government and all that stuff. But I would really appreciate if you guys, but that's all I got.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to just also speak with Mr. Deacon. Myself, Mr. Deacon, and Jerry Apcar with the Chamber met today. And Jerry at the Chamber, they are going to host the special event permit to host the alcohol outside of Stars. So between the city, Mr. Deacon's group, and the Chamber and Stars all working together, we were able to go ahead and get the special event permit approved for Mr. Deacon to go ahead and we're working on getting all that in gear, but the Chamber has agreed to host the special event for Mr. Deacon.
And it's just a beer garden. What we'll do is it'll be roped off, and believe me, nobody will go outside the ropes unless, it just isn't going to happen. We'll make sure that everything is on the up and up.
And Mr. Deacon had also mentioned that he had spoken to the downtown businesses and possibly closing off Adams Street on that Saturday as well to do a sidewalk sale.
If that's up with you guys. I kind of thought, I talked to several businesses and they thought maybe we could block it. The only ones that would be allowed to go in there would be motorcycles, like if they went in parked, and And I think it'd be positive for the community, and I get frustrated and I forget a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. But hopefully we could do that, and I'm already looking to next year. I really think that everybody's been asking me how many people do you think, and I'm thinking at the least probably 150. We could go as high as 500. I don't know.
Personally, I just want to thank Scott for bringing this to Monte Vista. I know that there's always that pull toward Alamosa that's bigger, and there's more things in Alamosa. And I know Scott worked really hard to get them to come to Monte Vista, and it can be an annual event that we have every year. And what a good thing to have in our community.
There's one thing I forgot too, and Kathy, sorry. We're gonna have a welcome party at the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
And we're planning on, this was Kathy's brainchild. We're gonna have a horseshoe tournament and buy in and stuff and split the money, go to the veterans and a little bit to the golf course. And Fred Hargrove, I conned him into, he's gonna play music for us, the guitar. And then
Mike Rios is
coming out, and he's gonna sell hamburgers. And I kind of twist a few arms to get all of it hopefully going.
Well, it'll be a family event.
But we're excited. Like you said, it'll be a family-oriented.
And a way to sort of include the golf course and give them a little bit of
Yeah.
notoriety as well.
Right. And let the
Bring them
people
into
see the whole town of Monte Vista. If it goes my way, next year we're gonna have to rent Sky Eye Park from you for the rally.
Yeah.
Also, the theater board had agreed to, we're going to put a little bit of advertisement on the marquee, and we're gonna do it for a month, so we'll do from May 16th to June 16th. And then we agreed to put donation jars out at the theater for the veterans for that entire month as well.
Are they going to show a motorcycle movie as well, or thinking
With
about it?
all the events going on Friday night at the golf course and with everything going on Saturday, the theater board we've kind of agreed that it wouldn't be feasible for the theater nor for the Brothers Keepers to purchase that movie. Don't
Makes
know how
sense.
many people would actually go to it, and we would have to show it all 3 days.
That makes sense.
But we've agreed to help advertise and to put donation jars out for them, for the veterans.
Just kind of wondering about something, what about a movie outside?
I had actually thought of that on the Friday night horseshoe tournament. I thought, what if we just had a big projector and an outside movie on one of the
That's a
big
good
walls?
idea. I mean, I've had so many people bring great ideas. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, just because, you know, community thing, you know, people walk by, see a movie going on, hey, let's go check it out, you know?
Yeah.
You want to work on that with
I have
me?
a projector.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's find a movie. We'll do that.
Thank you all of you.
Thank you, Scott.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Do you have to make a motion?
Well, I think we should
Yeah.
move. I would certainly move to make the requested $200 donation to this the event, which sounds to me like a great draw. You know, yeah, but I would move to at least do the 200.
And I would second that. And then I would move from 7 to 12 to close off Jefferson Street. And I was looking at everyone who is involved in that, and they're shaking their heads. To close off Jefferson
What else
Street.
can we close down, guys?
And so we can have the safety and the extra space for everyone.
And Adam,
Did he say Adams?
he was talking, where did he go?
Well, he left, I think he was working with the downtown businesses for the Adams Street closure.
For
I'm not
sidewalk
sure that was
sales.
it.
If the business owners want to do that, I'd be more than happy to close off Adams from
All right.
first to second.
Okay, perfect.
No problem.
I would second that.
Okay.
Okay, we have two motions on the floor.
Well, I seconded the money one.
Okay.
And
Well,
then I
we
So
just-
motioned.
let's deal with that one first. Okay, so the motion is for the $200 donation. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Elliport,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Becker,
Aye.
motion carries.
And then the second.
Okay, now I can do it. And I move that we close from 7 to 12 on June 16th, Jefferson Street, in the way that Scott requested. And if the Adams Street businesses are not willing to do their sidewalk sale, we could do the Adams Street as well.
I second that.
And moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Segola,
Aye.
Counselor Elliport,
Aye.
Mayor Becker,
Aye.
motion carries.
Very good. Okay, we have citizen comments. These are unscheduled comments. Please keep it to 3 minutes, if you would, please. Margot?
Hello, everybody. I'm here again. I just have a couple of quick comments to make. I know we have a water situation, and I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in. You know, water is life, and it's going to be the most precious commodity we're going to have to face in this country as conserving water. And I just want to put it out there that we as a town need to learn to conserve more and not waste our water as a whole nation, world in that matter. But I just wanted to say that I, put in plants that don't need a lot of water, and just be conscientious of your usage as a responsible citizen. And my other comment, I don't know much about the ordinance officer, except that he goes about doing his job, which I'm not quite sure what that is. But I have a question. Does the ordinance officer have legal authority to do his job? Is he backed up by the law? So if he comes to my house and says, I need to clean something up within a certain time and ability, that he has the teeth to enforce that? Is that how it works?
We just swore him in, Margot, and that gives him the authority to enforce the rules under which he has purview to do so, which is the codes.
Okay, so there are codes in town that he can enforce.
Yes.
And if so, some of these places that I have seen around town that really need a little help, maybe we could get kids from the high school to, I know I'm an old person, there's some things I can't do. Maybe there's, older people who can't clean up their property, maybe these kids, and we could go and help rake or haul off trash, or some of these old vehicles that sit around, really they should be dust by now, and they're not. If we could do something like that to help clean up our town. But thank you for answering, I just wasn't sure. And he also deals with animals?
He does, and if you put a group of any kind of labor force together, Jeff can put them to work. I guarantee it.
Okay, because I just thought this would be a good way for people and kids to get involved in our community, because we need to clean up some of these places. It's atrocious. And, have a little self-respect for your property, and if you can't do it, ask for help. Because I know I can help rake a little. I don't have a truck to haul trash off, but I bet we know people who do. And just help each other to make this town as good as it should be. Thank you.
May I interject a little bit?
Yes, sir.
I just want to let you know, and everybody else here, with the help of the chief, Forrest, and the mayor, whether some of you know or not, whether it's a foolproof plan or whatever, it wasn't a plan or whatever, there is a group of fine young gentlemen, they're MVP elite, they're a basketball team here from Monte Vista. A gentleman that has guided these kids for a long time. Most people don't know there's 15 of these kids, 12 of them come from a single parent or their grandparents. So what this gentleman's doing, I do want to recognize Fennell for doing it. That takes a certain kind of specialness to do something like that. I had these kids out there with another young lady that I was helping community service, I'm helping her again tomorrow, that we went out, Vinegar of all things, and went from the Lariat Ditch Connector all the way out to Broadway. These kids collected 45 bags of trash, 2 tires, some broken down street signs and stuff like that. And they never once cried, complained, or nothing. So if any of you in the community need some kind of help, I know there's some elderly out there that maybe can't quite do it, please, by all means, contact me. Just a little bit, these kids are doing this to supplement their basketball, which anybody that knows me, 30 years of coaching, I'm an advocate of having these kids stay out of trouble by doing sports. So if there's anything I can do to help ever, and Jaime, who I had the pleasure to meet with Coffee of the Cop, that the chief has once a month. It was such a great thing. I encourage anybody there to even join that as well as the Neighborhood Watch. It's just amazing to see these kids. That's your next generation to clean places. Because as I drive around, she is right. There's 1,000 properties out there right now that needs help. And I might be short. So I want to compliment the chief, Forrest, the mayor again, for their help in helping that. I know it's not a perfect solution, but it was a try. And these kids will do anything for you. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure. Oh, go ahead.
Hang on just a minute. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that's been a priority with me about getting a group together. And I'm elated to hear you say you already got a group together. So we'll talk about that. And I know some properties already, minor situations, but single moms or elderly or whatever that need that work. So we'll talk about that. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. No problem.
Fennell, would you like to step in on this while you're here? Appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Joel? Mr. Tonto?
I'm kind of here in the same context regarding the city weed ordinance. Where the old Trosper property used to be, on the west side of town by Morris Street in that area, the weeds, when I got home Tuesday evening, I spent over an hour getting the weeds from around our Subaru, but I spent 7 hours yesterday cleaning weeds up. And I have pictures, I don't know if you would like to see pictures. My neighbor knows what it looked like, and I had one vehicle that was completely encapsulated with weeds above the camper shell. And if it wouldn't have been for my other neighbor, I probably would have spent 10 hours. And this is a reoccurring thing. Since Trosper, it's not pasture land anymore. And I really feel like something should be done regarding that matter. Deal with this, when I got home this evening, I already had weeds piled in my yard again. And I spent over 7 hours yesterday. Luckily, Officer Huff was kind enough to let me burn them in a burn barrel, because there was no way I could have disposed of that many weeds. So I'm just saying there ought to be some kind of enforcement for this property over here between Big R and Morris Street, because every year since it hasn't been pasture land, I'll bet you I spend 20 hours a year cleaning those weeds up. And Mr. Becker's my neighbor, and he understands what we deal with. But for some reason, my house is a funnel, and he saw what it looked like. And I literally spent over 7 hours cleaning that yard yesterday. So I'm not here, I just wish there would be some kind of code enforcement on that, because it is within the city limits, and we do have a weed ordinance here. So that's really all I have to say. I just really think there should be something done regarding that matter, because it's the whole block of Morris Street. But for some reason, my house is the funnel. And if it wouldn't have been for my neighbor, I would have spent probably 10 or 11 hours trying to get my yard cleaned up. And when I got home this evening again, I already had weeds piling up. Not like they were earlier in the week, but it's really disheartening. I'll bet you I spent 40 to 50 hours over the last few years disposing of weeds from my property.
No,
Excuse me, these are the weed, you're talking about the
weeds that
open
grow
area?
in from where Trosper's pasture used to be.
Okay.
Between Big R and Morris Street.
And somehow this is ending up on your,
And on the whole block.
how does that work?
The wind blows in this country, takes all them dead
And
weeds.
then drops them all right.
Let's see. It blows in on comes down Second Avenue and it absolutely.
Oh, okay, so it's,
So,
and I kinda got the feeling that maybe there was somebody doing this to you.
No.
But it's just,
This is the wind.
it's the wind and the.
My
and the
driveway
wind and
has
the
a
weeds.
vortex for weeds too. They go right up there.
I had to clean our vehicle off because it'll get scratched.
Yeah,
I mean, and then that was the north side of the house.
that's pretty high.
there is a.
I'm just telling you,
But
it's,
you've already talked to,
I mean,
Yeah, it's no fun.
it is no fun at
What's
all.
the code on that? I know there's code for weed control, but what is that?
Well,
Off the top of your head,
Officer Hoff was very helpful. I appreciate, I came and spoke with him, and he was extremely helpful, so I thank him very much for that.
John was trying to get.
I don't know if anybody remembers, but in 2009, that field lit up, and it advanced all the way up to the alley of on the west side of Morris Street. And the firefighters had to actually form a line at that point and started soaking everything to keep the fire from jumping onto the residences. I live at 245 Morris, and I can tell you my yard right now is looking like the desert with the amount of tumbleweeds we got in there. So, they'll come right up over that fence and sometimes even like jump the houses in the stiff breeze and then land on the east side of Morris. So I would definitely support some sort of initiative to clean that. And they brush hogged it a couple of years ago. I believe it was 3 years ago, and it got much, much better at that point, but since then it's been fairly unkempt.
Right. What is the code?
There's a certain height, once it grows beyond, they're considered weeds. And we'll get with,
the landowners?
yeah, obviously I know who they are, and as Mr. Campbell, kids call him, pointed out, that, a couple of years ago, we did take an enforcement action on them, they did take care of it, but it didn't really happen last year, so we'll get back on them. I know exactly where they're coming from, I mean, the bulk of them, some of them come way, from the part of the Charles we're still on, most of them are right in that area between Solar and Red Tail. So, we'll get on those guys.
It's been an occurrence for the last several years, and it's really disheartening when you have to go out there 2 or 3 times a week during this time of year and clean that up. And that happens actually worse sometimes than the pictures that I showed you. And it's so disheartening when you come home and your vehicles are encased in that, because also it doesn't help with your paint job on your vehicle.
Certainly doesn't help in keeping the varmints down either. And since that's gone and grown high, I've definitely noticed an increase in the amount of mice that have been paying a visit to my shop and sheds. I think it's just because there's so much food out there and that lot is probably about 25% alfalfa as well. So, kind of a mixed uses there, a lot of protein in the alfalfa for
If I can interject a little bit, I did invite this fine gentleman to come here this evening to express just that, and he's right. I wanted to work with him in the best way possible. Might not have been the most orthodox way of doing it. The man was very cautious, very courteous, and honestly, he's one of many around the town with the weeds. And someone's gonna have to restore the pride back in people taking care of the weeds. So I really respect that fine gentleman for coming here and sharing it with him tonight, because I know the mayor's right there too. I don't want to use him being the mayor as a weed problem there too, but I know he endured it.
Well, he asked me to come so that there would be a second voice here concerning that, but it is extremely troubling. I've owned that house for 31 years, so it's not like I haven't been there. And it is so disheartening. I got home this evening, and guess what I'm going to be doing tomorrow again. And this time of year, it's a never ending, it's deja vu, so to speak, like Groundhog Day.
Which leads me to the point I'm trying to make. We need to get better communication with the landfill and maybe an amnesty day sooner or later, especially when we have 74-mile-per-hour winds. You can't expect these people to be able to clean that up like that without some help. Just my opinion, so.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Tonto.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Yep.
Hi, my name's Jenny Nearing. I live on Adams Street.
Similar to Margot's comment about water restrictions, I believe that due to the extremely low snowpack, the snowtail data as of today shows a 30% snowpack, 30% of normal, and our peak snowpack is at 11 full days earlier than normal, and we have forecasted drought conditions through at least the spring and the summer. I would like to request that the city put outdoor water restrictions in place for 2018. As Margot said, water is an increasingly limited resource in the West, and municipalities should be responsible about conservation efforts. Independent of drought conditions, there's never a good time to be wasteful with a precious resource. So I think I would request that council consider making restrictions permanent. Many of our council members speak to a desire to have Monte Vista be a more progressive city, and I believe that establishing responsible water restrictions is a progressive response to our current drought conditions. And furthermore, often when water is discussed across the West, many point out that the largest water user is agriculture, as if conservation in municipal areas is not relevant. But given that we're an agricultural community, water conservation measures within our municipalities is the responsible thing to do to support our ag community, which our economy is dependent on. So, and if you are interested, I have snowpack graphs and that are really kind of dramatic. They show how striking this year is. This is snowpack through the month, through all the winter months. This is the black line is our curve for this year. The yellow line is average. And the forecasting for precip for May, June, and July, we might be average. But our forecast for temperature through that same time period is forecasted to be above average. So that's all. Thank you.
If you don't need them, I would like to have them.
Okay, I also have them on a drive if you want to throw them up there.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
thank you.
Do you have any other comments? Citizen comments? Now, we're gonna go into recess for the public hearing on the water here in just a
I have
minute.
something prepared for that later, but I forgot to fill out my card on something else. Can I come up?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm Rita Bowser. We have Southern Colorado Computer Services downtown. Last Wednesday afternoon, I had a couple of gentlemen come in. Long story short, they stole from us. Within about 10 minutes of calling the police station, they were in our store. I happened to have a phone number that led them to the people, and by 9:20 the next morning, our cartridge was returned by one of the perpetrators. Officer Hill, Joshua Hill, was a young man, the officer who responded. And I gotta tell you, I don't know what he did, but I think he put the fear of you-know-who in these men who returned the merchandise. So I would like to thank the police department, and I mean, these guys are so quick and so responsive. So, you know, it falls on us. We have more video cameras now, more whatever. It's all expense to whatever. It's frustrating, it makes me mad. But the silver lining is that we have a team of officers respond, they listen, and they take action, and we got our stuff back. So I want a round of applause for them.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, Rick. Actually, that's not the first time I've heard that, and I'm very pleased at the response time that I'm hearing about. That's not an easy thing to do. I know.
Any other comments? Okay, we will recess the public hearing. God bless you.
So, I think he gets to start the party.
All right, come on.
Okay, we've got a public hearing on some issues with the water, and I think probably what would make some sense is to at least hear from the city manager as to kind of what the issue is. And then I don't know if, Gary, you wanted to make a presentation, is that right or no?
I have a brief one I can do after.
Okay. And then I think we would probably take folks that are in favor and then folks that may be against. So, Forrest, you want to kind of lead off and kind of give us a general idea of what we're talking about here?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So for the public hearing this evening, I prepared a memorandum with exhibits. Hopefully, majority of it is fact-based and it includes a staff recommendation. The estimated number of water customers that would benefit from the shift from 5,000 gallons as a base year to 7,500 would be approximately 1,465 customers. One thing to keep in mind is that benefit actually only applies to 8 months. Because the 4 months of the year, we give the first 15,000 gallons in the base rate. And that's the winter season. The reason we do that is to allow people to drip faucets, etc., because we have a lot of shallow lines. And a lot of people don't have fully insulated crawl spaces, etc. So instead of the meters freezing up and their stuff freezing up, we actually give 15,000 gallons of water, which honestly, in my experience, is pretty generous. So for the 4 months of the year, basically we're looking at, for 8 months, the total fiscal impact in the city of this change would be approximately $45,000. That equates to about $30 per residential customer per year. This is my editorial comment. The notion that $30 per year would significantly change anyone's personal landscaping practices appears to me to be overly optimistic. $30 doesn't get you much in the way of landscaping. It has been stated that the city is currently in a good place in regards to its water augmentation plan, and that is true. We have adequate water rights, we believe. When it goes to water court and augmentation plan, we should be okay. To get to be okay, however, the city borrowed $1.6 million from the Colorado Water Conservation Board. We used that to purchase storage in Rio Grande Reservoir and additional surface water rights, and that's my Exhibit A. That shows the promissory note, which was enacted August 18th of 2010 for $1,693,770 at a 4% interest for 30 years. We have not begun to repay that loan yet because the way that these loans work is when the project is closed, then the debt service starts. At the very latest, we would have to start repaying that in 2020. Depends on when our augmentation thing hits the court. We still have a lot of way to go there. In that agreement, we have about $98,000 that are not obligated, so we have at least $1.5 million. So that's a $98,000 a year annual payment. Okay, $98,000 a year that we're not currently spending out of the water fund or any other fund. When we signed this loan agreement, there was a rate increase that was supposed to be put in place, but that was withheld until the 2016 water rate increase. And part of the loan requirement is that we build up a reserve to start repaying it. And that is actually in the contract documents with CWCB. And so we have budgeted to save about $52,000 per year, and that started in roughly 2016. So we have about $150,000 that we've saved so far. So effectively, the money that we're currently setting aside for debt service, if you look at that money that's not being used for other enterprise, and I want to stress once again, it's a water enterprise, it's a business unit of the city. It's not part of the general fund. It's its own deal as is sewer. So, we're saving $52,000 per year, but by losing $45,000 per year from the water fund, if we're supposed to be pre-funding our debt repayment, where's that money going to come from? Honestly, I don't know, other than we have to divert funds from other projects of the water fund in order to save that money. And even with saving money, once we're making the debt service, it's $98,000 a year. I'd also point out that on the water augmentation side, we're currently paying the attorneys still, and we will be through augmentation. That averages about $3,500 per month in cost from the water fund. So again, the reduced funding would have an impact on that. And there's additional engineering on this to get to water court and get it all proven out. It's very highly detailed stuff, and there's probably $20,000 to $25,000 of engineering left on that. So there's still quite a substantial cost in the next 2 years to get our water augmented. If you look at the approved 2018 budget, the water fund's operating at a deficit currently. It does have a fund balance, that is true, but even with the minor replacement of water lines that we planned, and that's about 330 feet or 300 feet, versus the more than 30 miles of water lines, valves, and pump features that need to be replaced in our system, there's currently not adequate rates to support the water fund enterprise's operations and obligations. Now, I've worked places where they supplemented that with money from the general fund, but you all are aware that our general fund is not robust. So I also wanted to just address a comment. I had a gentleman come into my office and say, when I moved here in 1975, I paid $35 a month for water, sewer, and trash. And we're paying too much. And I was like, really? Okay. Didn't have an argument with him, but I wanted to see, I broke that $35 into $12 for water, and said, okay, what's $12 worth in 1975 to today? $12 today is worth $55.13. So, what's our base rate for water? $28. So, if that 12 was adequate then, which it probably wasn't, and I'll explain why, the fact that we're only charging $28, essentially half of what the inflationary value of that $12 was in 1975, we clearly are not sticking it to the citizens. You know, we're doing the best we can, but what that means, you know, back in 1975, we did not have a plan to replace water lines, water valves, to get a water tank for the city, to improve lift stations, pump houses, all that other stuff. None of that was in the plans then. We have it in our plan now, but some of it we're not able to achieve because we don't have adequate revenue. So we haven't been overcharging the citizens for water. We've merely been keeping the rates down and deferring maintenance until the system has reached the sad state it is today. Now I applaud Rob and the Public Works crew for Band-Aids, baling wire, duct tape. You know, all that stuff is what we hold our stuff together with. We have pipelines that were installed in the 1950s. 30 miles of it, maybe it's 27 miles. That's parsing hairs. But those water lines were installed in the 50s. If anyone knows anything about steel pipe schedules in ground, well, you know what, they've all probably pretty much expired. So we're not talking about having to replace every water line in town, but that one they dug out 2 years ago, over there by Lariat, how many patches did that have in it, Rob? 9. 9 patches in this little section of pipe. So we cut it, you know, the guys cut it out, they worked all night to restore service and got it done. And with a nice piece of shiny new plastic pipe. Fancy plastic pipe, I always forget the term for it. But, what's that?
C900.
Thank you, C900 pipe. So what we need is that kind of pipe all across our system. We clearly don't have the revenues to do that. You know, we discussed the need for a water tank in the 2016 rate increase. We started setting aside a super small amount of money, like $50K every 2 years, to go towards a 1 million gallon tank. As staff has reported, and I believe that was in Rob's report, we really needed 3 million gallons. 3 million gallons worth of tankage. Why? Does everyone remember when the water went out the other day? That was all had to do with the wind and electricity and all that stuff. Now, if we had a tank, nobody had ever known it. They would have gotten an alarm from the system. The guys would have gone over. They did a great job figuring out what it was and fixing it. But there had been water in the tank. And you know, heaven forbid we'd had a fire in downtown or somewhere in the city when that was going on and there wasn't water running from the fire hydrants. So, I'm not trying to be gloomy or doomy here, but what I'm saying is we have a water system that needs a lot of work. I personally am a big fan of the notion that we can expand existing businesses and bring new businesses to our community. I think you all know that. In fact, I believe that's vital to our community's continuing success. However, with the current water rates, it would take many dozens of businesses to make up the lost revenue to the city. And also, sales tax is great, but where does sales tax go? Doesn't go in the water fund or the sewer fund, or to pay for pest control or streetlights. It goes into the general fund. Now, we all know, and I think I already alluded to that our general fund is not adequate to meet the demands that we currently have. So we need all the new business we get, and I wholeheartedly believe that. And we need the businesses that we have to have an opportunity to do better, and the council's taking actions to do that. But I dare say it'd be a long time before the water fund would make up, $42,000 in lost revenue. So essentially, staff's recommendation on this is that, based on the condition of the water fund, the fact that it's operating in the red, that, looking at inflation and everything else, and we're not raising rates, and we're not proposing that right now. And I hear a lot of people say our water rates are high. But one of the things, what was the population, somebody in 1975? I was going to get that number before I came to the meeting. Pretty much what it is today. I think it's pretty close. So if we've had that much inflation since 1975, and we haven't not increased the user base for water rates, then with that inflation in costs and chemicals and all this other stuff we have to do now, we're not gaining ground. People like to say, well, Alamosa pays a lot less than we do. Their city has grown a lot faster than ours has. So you've got lots of new subdivisions, and when you get more payers in the rate base, you don't really have to raise your rates that much to keep up with inflation. I haven't asked them if they think they're keeping up either. I imagine that they have some issues too. In fact, I know they do. But at the end of the day, this is my report, my perspective from the city, from a financial sort of point of view on this recommendation. And from that standpoint, I would recommend council not approve this at this time.
Do any of the council members have any questions of Forrest while he's up there in particular? Forrest, just, to maybe clarify, the water augmentation plan is probably 2 years away from being finalized?
Yes, sir. Based on our last conversations with the water attorneys and the court schedules and all that, and of course the rate case isn't settled yet, or the plan case, 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay. And the cost of the water attorneys can go up or down depending on whether they can resolve our plan, right?
That's correct, but we're at least 50, I don't know how intensive the court piece is going to be, but there's $50,000 to $100,000 in legal fees remaining on that project.
And as soon as they're done, then the loan kicks in, just so everybody gets
Yes,
the idea.
absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest.
All right. Does any member of the audience wish to speak either for the proposal here or against it? You want to come on up to the podium? And just state your name if you would. And
My name is Jenny Nearing, and I just stand by my previous comments about how prudent it would be to put water restrictions in place. And I think augmentation is another great reason for why water conservation is necessary as we look forward. And the infrastructure, if we use less, our wear and tear is less, our expenses decrease, it just makes sense to do whatever we can to conserve water. That's all.
anyone else wish to speak?
Rena.
My name is Rena Boucher. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council, City staff. To summarize the information that has been presented numerous times over the years and what what our city manager just spoke about. Both the water supply and sewage systems are inadequate and badly in need of repair and replacement. The situation has existed for decades and is only getting worse because not enough money has been available and or designated for system improvements. It is probable there are problems with water right inadequacy. A new well may be also needed soon. There is indication of a need for water storage tower. Additionally, there is a specter of new requirements from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment for processing sewage, potentially a very large obligation on the city. In short, we in the Monte Vista are in serious trouble regarding future costs of water supply and sewage disposal for our citizens. It makes no sense at all to reduce revenue in relation to water bills. Unfortunately, it should and must be decreased as time goes on. Lowering water bills may create a false sense of security among our citizens and mask the real problem. Tonight, I challenge you as a city council to help educate those who voted for you, as well as those who did not vote for you, on why you can't readily give them what they want when they want it, which are the best water and sewer system at the lowest rates. We as citizens need to be educated to understand that water and sewer rates aren't increased as a punishment, but that we are all joining together to invest in a necessity for the future needs. It's hard to see the need to pay for something that we don't see. We need to pull together, not pull apart. Rarely does the average person get the opportunity to understand all that is involved until you're elected to a council position or sit on a committee that deals with these issues or work in a related field. In 2002, I sat in one of these seats for the first time and began to learn. Until then, I didn't know much more about municipal water and sewer issues other than the fact that I paid my bill each month and that when I turned on the faucet, the water flowed out. Imagine my surprise when I learned the following. The city had just recently hired an expert consultant to study these issues and make recommendations at a cost of more than $50,000. I was astounded. What in the world would he even do to earn that kind of a fee? For that money, he videoed our sewer system. I watched the video for 2 hours, having made a deal with my daughter to braid her hair all that night, so I didn't have to watch it alone. While that movie certainly didn't offer Star Wars cinematography, it was clear that it did have a message. And while I have my papers out of order, sorry. And what I did see was clear enough to cause great concern. There were cracks and holes in the pipes, groundwater was seeping in, and raw sewage was seeping out. I learned that we chemically treated liquids that ended up in our holding ponds so that it could once again become clean, pure water that would be released into the water. And they told me that we could take sewage and treat it and we could drink it again. I was astounded. I also learned about the cost of doing that and the regulations and penalties associated with not being in compliance. He also estimated the cost of repairing and or replacing the antiquated and damaged system. He charted cost projections showing the different rate increases and time spans, allowing us to decide how quickly we could get the money and for what was necessary. He helped us understand about mandates from the government that also offered no help in paying for them. He helped us understand compliance and non-compliance issues and penalties. What we need to understand is that we don't have something equivalent to a new Cadillac or even a 20-year-old mid-range automobile. Rather, we are still driving something equivalent to a rusted-out, poorly maintained 1952 jalopy. If everyone had to pay for their own wells, septic systems, they'd understand that owning a portion of a community system is a real bargain. The maddening reality is that we should all be paying exponentially more each month, but it's not affordable nor realistic to do that in a city with our poor economic structure. There is also the issue of miles of unpaved roads within our city limits. It makes sense economically to repair what's under the roads before we pave them so we don't have to dig it up and repave again. More money, folks. Saving $375 a month per household or $30 a year is a drop in the bucket, and yes, that is a pun intended, for what we need to do. That $30 a year barely pays for two people to go to dinner and a movie and get the small popcorn at the movie if you do that. But as a united community who contributes collectively, the $375 per month equates to $45,000 a year, which is significant to us as a whole. Sadly, that still falls short of fixing our antiquated failing infrastructure. The press will report the decisions that you make, but it may end up being the responsibility of each of you to educate your constituents as to why you make those decisions. I suggest a weekly editorial from each of you on a rotating basis about all of the things that you learn as you go through your city council journey. When you embrace people and bring them into the fold, giving them ownership in the results of your decisions, you gain cooperation and, believe it or not, gratefulness. I liken it to when parents set up a college fund when their child is very young. And another level of responsibility comes when those parents take it a step further by having that child contribute a small portion of their allowance earnings to the fund. It gives the child ownership, and when they finally get to college, there's a sense of pride that they were a partner in their own success. I believe it's possible to achieve the same results with most citizens in the same manner. Mayor Becker, I voted for you, not just because you were the only mayoral choice, but because I believed in you. I believed in your ability to bring people together. I believed in your ability to learn and make conscientious decisions that are the best for the citizens over a long period of time, securing a healthy future for Monte Vista. I believe in the abilities of every person on this council, and I believe in the city staff to do what is best for the future of our interests. In closing, changing the tier structure of the current water rate plan to offer citizens more water usage without collecting revenue is not beneficial for anyone in the long run. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Someone else? Yes. You would state your name as well?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm afraid of that.
Okay.
I'm Margaret Hurd, citizen of Monte Vista. I have some great neighbors across the street.
Yeah.
Colorado Division of Water Resources. They monitor the snowpack, and their concern is with the rivers. And also have Jenny Nearing for a neighbor. So I thank her for coming forth and stating what she did. All this is a graph dated today from the Natural Resources Conservation Services. And I highlighted the fourth column from the left, the percentage of median or the percentage of normal. And this is a little bit higher than her percentage, but you can see in the upper Rio Grande Basin, these are all the areas where the snowpack is measured. You can find all these on a map if you don't know where they are. But the basin index for all of those combined is only 36% of normal. I came to this valley when I was about 3 years old. My father was a civil engineer here with the Bureau of Reclamation. And for my whole life, water has been a precious commodity in this community. I have family and friends who are farmers. So I just wanted to present this as evidence that you have in your hand for the water situation in the valley. I believe it's our job as citizens, but your job also as councilmen who were voted in by the citizens to show good stewardship and to educate the community and yourselves with charts, graphs, like Jenny showed you, and speaking to these people one-on-one. These guys show up at work across the street, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I tried to get some of them to come and speak tonight, but they get up too early. Sam Riggenbaugh said that this is the worst drought since 2002, and he said it's scary. So when the people who work in the water are scared, I think we should be also. And that we need to be good stewards of our water. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody wants a copy of this, Forrest has one and so does Nita. We can make copies for you. It's interesting. They come out every day. You want it?
Keep it.
Okay. Okay.
was asked to, I was sent a letter and asked to read it tonight. He was unable to be here. City Council, I'm responding to the public hearing regarding the proposal to increase the base amount of water use allowed with the base water rate. My first concern is that with the aging infrastructure, the reduction in revenue with the change may lead to falling further behind in replacement of supply lines, updating the pump control system, and installing storage. It is important that rehabilitating and safety of the system be maintained and improved given the age of our current water delivery system. If this change in billing is a priority, I suggest that the lost revenue be documented and the general fund be used in a like amount to offset any reduction in funding for the maintenance of the water system. This may require cuts in other programs, but that would demonstrate that this is a priority and not a gift back to the community fund by reducing the amount spent on maintaining the infrastructure. Another concern I have is the rules regarding the withdrawal of groundwater in the Rio Grande Basin and being enacted leading to the reduction in pumping across the basin. If the city of Monte Vista is increasing our consumption as the surrounding communities are being forced to reduce their consumption, we are not going to be seen as a part of the solution. As a part of state statute defines requirements for sustainability of confined aquifer system in terms of water levels and artesian pressures that existed in the time period of 1978 through 2000. In order to supplement the limited amount of the data available today, data will be collected from well monitoring networks and incorporated into the RGDSS groundwater model. Within 10 years of the effective date of the rules, the state engineering must determine the preferred meteorologist to maintain a sustainable water supply in the confined aquifer system. For the first 10 years, the division is using the sustainability metric of limiting groundwater consumption to levels from 1978 to 2000. This puts the city in favorable conditions because our pumping has been reduced within the installation of flow meters and billing based on usage. However, if confined aquifer levels decline over the next 10 years, a more strict policy could be enforced. By continuing to make reductions now, we would be doing our part to meet the sustainability requirements and improve the situation for the future. As part of the rules of the city must also make up depletions to surface water caused by pumping. The city again is in favorable position because our accretions or return flows to the Rio Grande exceed our depletions. But we also have depletions in the Alamosa River, the Caneos River, and potentially the Lahara Creek. Our accretions could be used to make up these depletions on other stream systems by trading them with sub-districts to have the augmentation water on these other stream systems. If we are increasing our consumptive use, we may not be in a favorable or a trading partner as other cities that are reducing consumption. Controversially, if we show we have taken and are continuing to keep steps that help meet the sustainability metric, we might have a more favorable trading status than other cities. As for me, I'm willing to pay an extra $3.50 per month if it helps ensure the reliable and safe water supply into the future. I recommend that this change not be made at this time. Respectfully, Jason Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Matthew Martinez, a lifelong resident of Monte Vista. I feel like this issue is a very short-sighted proposal that doesn't account for the current water situation or addressing the long-term needs of the city of Monte Vista. We are facing the worst drought in the valley in over a decade. Farmers are facing reduced usage as well, and therefore less crops and less revenue to the city. Additionally, we have an aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced, as well as no water storage, as you've heard tonight. The current water and sewer fund is designed to start addressing these issues, as well as the looming water treatment standards, which if implemented today, the city would be unable to afford, which is 15 to 17 million at the last estimate. Additionally, to go back into the 2016 water main break, with Rob and his crew, who did an outstanding job addressing that. That's how bad the system was, is that one small leak, we could not shut off the water at that point. We had to shut off water to the entire city because of the aging infrastructure. And Rob still has that pipe around somewhere, I believe, to show everybody what their water runs through, and being able to address that is what the water increase has been. With all of this, I believe that the last thing that we should do in this situation is increase the amount of water usage and decrease the funding to the city. I will gladly continue to pay the current rates and cut back on my usage, as well as pay more to ensure the safety of its citizens and to ensure water sustainability in the San Luis Valley. I'm sure you guys are aware of this as well too, but in the packet tonight, there's also an ordinance here recommending water restrictions. And I think that tells me that you as council also recognize the current situation and realize that you guys have a due diligence to try to help out not only the San Luis Valley, but do right by the citizens of Monte Vista and the taxpayers. So I would highly recommend not enforcing this proposal tonight, and to continue to do right by the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the issue? Okay, if you'd state your name
I wasn't going to speak, and frankly, everybody else has said most of what I was going to say, but my name is Laura Conchelos. I live in Monte Vista just for the last 2 years, but yeah, everybody spoke really well. I was going to speak from a more conservation point of view, but I think the issue of infrastructure was really interesting and somewhat frightening. And I guess just the only thing I could say in addition is that I would definitely support, I could afford and would support a slight increase in my water rates if it meant that we could pay for our infrastructure to be upgraded sooner, but I understand in the city, we're a pretty poor city and community, I would definitely encourage that ordinance to pass. That's for conservation measures. I grew up in eastern Canada where the water flows, but we had every other day grass watering, because we still had to conserve our water there, and we had a lot more water there than we do here. So yeah, I would say in support of our farmers and our agricultural base, and just the future, because we might as well start now, and we should hit the ground running and start learning to grow those water efficient or water conscious grow things water consciously in our front yards. Because I do appreciate what Councillor Dodson said about when he proposed the idea of increasing our base, just that it would be nice to have, the water for creating nice lawns and stuff is good, but I think we need to start learning how to use less water sucking plants to do that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
May I? Do I need to get down there?
You can do what you want, Mayor.
On behalf of what everybody has said, and it was very well put, being involved with the ag part of this more than anything, me myself, being water conservationist is so important in this day and time. I do believe the city needs something. I believe that the people of the city do need to have something given to them. I do not deny that, but I believe that the city needs to look at it as a whole. There's young people in here tonight, and forgive me, Charles, old people in here tonight. But older or younger, whatever you want to put it, but and that was respectful, okay? But we see some of our future here, and this is very, very crucial. When they're talking the drought, I heard a comment the other day that it was an article in the paper, that there will be places in the Rio Grande River and the Canales River that will be dry. Also heard that this is the 4th driest year on record for drought since 1930. So that really has a lot to say. So growing up here in the San Luis Valley my whole life, and I can remember when the artesian wells flowed, unconditionally flowed. I mean, 4-foot streams just blowing. And today you don't see an artesian well hardly. So, once again, I would like to see the community get together and have their own little input in this, as we have heard tonight, but it's for everybody. So for those of you who will be on and checking and reading all this, I respectfully say that we do not do this because of the fact that there's kids here that want to drink water when they're our age. And Charles, but so that's all I had. We just need to be conservative all the way around. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else who wishes to speak?
Go, let Charlie.
Charles?
The mayor has gone to the end of the conversation. I remember when we were on the city council, we started installing water meters, about 5, 6, and 7. And you could plot as we installed the water meters and people had to start paying their water bill on the basis of their water use, you could see the water use go down. And if you look around the town, as I did a while back in the summer, you will find that there's already a water curtailment in effect because many people cannot afford to or have chosen not to water their lawns. And although what I wanted to say basically, it's very nice to be concerned about usage and water shortage, that is not the problem you should be concentrating on. The city of Monte Vista is faced with a problem, and he can tell you the problem you're facing, and that is how to get across a 10-foot chasm with a 9-foot ladder. You cannot afford to make the improvements that you're going to be called on to without outside help. You're in a tough spot, and so are many of the cities in the San Luis Valley. I represent the industrial water users and to some extent the industrial water users on the Rio Grande Basin Roundtable. I've done that for about 10 years. And we did a study, Forrest took part in it, he was a contributing member. So was Jason and so was Gene Farish. This study's available to you if you want to use it, it might be helpful. But I'm not kidding, folks. You may sit here and be worried about water usage, but what you ought to be doing is how in the heck you're going to pay for the improvements that you're going to have to make. Not only what you see on the horizon, but what could tackle you in back from the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. You are not in a good position, and neither are most of the cities in the San Luis Valley. It's not about water use. M&I use in the valley is 1.5% of the total. Ag use is 98.5%. And the amount that we can do with regard to, although it's a fine thought to conserve water, the main thing is how in the heck you're gonna find a time when people are gonna move away because they can't afford to live here because of the water bill. And that is not a pleasant thing, so that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for drawing me into the conversation.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I want to say something. Okay, many of you have said you've lived here your whole life, and my father is 97, and he was born and raised here, and he said, I've never seen a drier season than this last winter. When I was very young, he always said, you don't buy land, you buy water. And I didn't understand that because that was in the 60s and the 70s, and there was water everywhere, and I was out in the green fields, and I thought, what do you mean? And he said, Kathy, don't ever forget, the San Luis Valley is an alpine desert. We are a desert, and in relationship to your comment about Canada, where water flows, he said, we pull water from the ground. We don't get water from the air. And he said, you don't ever buy land, you buy water rights. And on the same vein as everyone else, we need to live very conservatively with our water, and we should have been doing this for many years. We haven't. It's kind of a nice problem to ignore. But by golly, wait till somebody's water gets shut off. How many of you remember when Alamosa had the salmonella leak in their main system, and they had to import water for a long time? And that was a big issue. It about broke the town, the city of Alamosa, and our infrastructure is not in any better shape than theirs is in some places. I just, when I moved from the country into town, one of the things I looked at was how much water was I going to have to use, because I was out in the country and I hadn't been paying for anything. And I bought a house that's xeriscape, particularly because I did not want to spend all my money on water, and I was scared to death. I was going to retire as a teacher and I knew I'd be on a limited income, and I was not going to pay for water. And I think Jenny Nearing made a very good point, and a couple of other people in here. We need to be looking at water regulation and lean completely toward conservation, not toward more usage. And I know when I'm paying for it, that 2,500 gallons, I would be looking at that and think, oh, well, I might as well let this run. I get 2,500 gallons more. And even though it's not a lot of water in relationship to how much we use, it's enough that it might make me really go over. And I just feel like we need to be very conservative with our water, and we need to look at what's going to happen in the next 10 years in the San Luis Valley with water. I don't care if we had a lot of water this last winter and we weren't in a big drought. We still need to think about conservation and taking care of this, because we are a high mountain desert. So there you go.
Thank you. Anyone else, or from the council? It's an open meeting, anybody? You're gonna wait, Gary, right?
Oh, I'm the only one that's got, yeah, and I'll, as soon as that's done, I can make a statement and announce it.
You wanna make it as part of the public hearing or after?
No, that would be fine, as long as everybody's said their piece.
All right, doesn't look like anybody's raising their hand, so you wanna make a statement for the public hearing?
I would be glad to. Let me make a few things clear. I'm not gonna do that. No.
Okay.
There was a presentation that I had set up, but it doesn't have to do with water. Let me put everybody's mind at ease before I go any further at all. This is not about water. It was about stirring up a positive reaction within the city, which hasn't quite worked. I would challenge anybody that has gathered all the information. I've gathered plenty myself, and I've got some great arguments, but I'm not going to present them because I'm withdrawing the request. And I would challenge anybody that had anything that came up against, and I appreciate the people coming out, for heaven's sakes, because it shows spirit within the town. And that's really what I was trying to stir up, but not on the negative side. I would challenge anybody that has come up with the basis for not doing this to come up with a plan B, as our mayor said, to give something back, to get this community behind everything that we have planned for it. We have big plans. We haven't talked about a lot of them because we've been overwhelmed with everything else that's gone on. It hasn't all been positive. But if you can come up, and my email is public, there's Facebook, or kind of prefer email, but nonetheless, any ideas that you would have that can be done for this community to get the people stirred up, because I've been here for a whopping 5 years, which still leaves me as the new guy in town. But I still hear, ever since I've gotten here, the negative atmosphere that is overwhelming in terms of absolutely almost everything. The water thing, fine. That was the bad choice. I still think it could work, but our city manager has made he's very strong on a thing called optics, meaning that perception is everything. And the perception of doing this, even though it can stir up some positive out in the public, the perception is going to be negative. So, fine, that's a dead issue. I'm the one that came up with the idea, but it wasn't in terms of water or green grass or anything else. It was in terms of what can we do to bring this community together, get them stirred up, to get them, oh, for gosh sakes, like show up for some festivals, to upgrade the Crane Festival, to get people out for events that, for Stampede, for heaven's sakes, is a couple of days. It should be a couple of weeks, and it should be promoted in town, and the business people should be putting up banners and wearing weird hats and putting on contests. And I've been in towns where that kind of thing happens, and it has no indication of happening here until we do something to stir up the people by something positive so that they can look, and I'm thinking specifically, of course, of the city government and the city council, to be able to look at that city council and say, well, there's something different here. We have all talked about ideas and goals. For heaven's sakes, we've got the strategic plan that the council is, under the direction of the city manager, has been working on, and it is powerful. The very first core value that shows up in that strategic plan is faith. And if we can stir up faith in this town again, somehow, you guys let me know. You are very prolific about this whole issue, and I appreciate that. I've learned a lot. But let's find something together that we can build on. Yes, we need to bring in business, but I don't think those businesses are going to do much good as long as the negative attitude remains in town. And it's not you all. I'm not criticizing you because you came up with some good points. But let me know what it is that we can do to stir up this town to the next level, whatever that is, in something positive. And these businesses that we bring in then will stay. The businesses that stay will cause the economy to pick up. I guarantee you we can't pay for that water tower with water rates unless you're willing to pay $500 to $800 a month for, it just can't be done. So we'll leave the water rate alone. But something needs to be done, and when I commented about Chief Rosecrans, I'll get you in a minute. I'm on a roll here. What's happening over there in your department is part of what I'm talking about. That little things like the good heavens response time. Well, what difference does that make? Well, it obviously makes a certain amount of difference, but it's making a bigger difference than we know, because we've heard from a couple of people. What about the people that don't even show up at these meetings, that have benefited from well, yeah, they're watching it. How you doing? On YouTube. And because of that, that's exactly an example of what I'm talking about. It doesn't have anything to do specifically with money or tax base or building a water tower or anything else. but it's creating an attitude, and I want to build on that. I want to come up with something, and I will, and hopefully next time it won't be quite as reactionary, and understand, please, that the idea behind all of this is to rebuild this town to something that we can all be proud of. I know we're all proud of it now. I'm proud of it, and I'm the new guy in town. But I know it can be bigger and better. These events and everything else that I mentioned and talked about. But we have to do something, and we can't do it apart. We have to do it together. So, having said that, I'm with you. I'm with because you're here, because you care for and love this community. That's why I'm here. And if this plan isn't going to work, then let's talk about Plan B, and let's get it done. Amen. I'm sorry, Jeff, did you have something?
Yeah, first off, I'll say I apologize right up front. I don't know any other way than straightforward, okay? And the chief and I, in his office, I can share with you that I've told him, you know, we're about the same age. I shared with him that, you know, one of the two is going to get in trouble probably. And what I mean by that is not that we don't have the best intentions. One of the reasons I took the position is I have a deep amount of respect for this gentleman. And why? You know, I'm not quite the perfectionist, you know, in my papers, but I can tell you in this office, the way he goes about his business, cleaning the inside and everything, and that's what I want to get at. I apologize if I offend any of you at all. Look at our city hall building right now. I'm going to say it totally straight, it's a disgrace. We're behind the times in a lot of it, and I understand money's an issue, but you want to hire, how many code enforcement guys have you had so far? No, I've heard a lot and everything. And I drive around the city and people are afraid to come to meetings like this because they're afraid to stand up and say something with the amount of drug homes back there and things like that. And I drive around Pennsylvania, Cass, and if any of you live there, I apologize, I'm not trying to offend you. But you go around and I can name 1,000 properties in this town, just going up and down. And I send a little green card out and stuff, and there's junk cars in their yard. There's junk in their yard, there's broken fences, there's this, there's weeds, there's that, there's everything. This hasn't happened overnight. This has been a complacency thing for a long, long time. Longer than maybe I've been born. I'm 50 this year. I'm going to tell you right now, I had a community service girl, and this is where I said the pride thing, and some of us should be ashamed. When I say us, I am part of your community. I don't even live in Monte Vista. I could leave here tonight and not care about any of you, get a paycheck and everything else. I'm not that way. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're paying me for a service, and that's exactly what I'm going to provide. I don't care who you are, how much money you got, whatever it is. If I get in trouble because I picked on the wrong person, then so be it. We have a Bates Motel back on Sequoia. Anybody ever see that?
I have.
Okay, that is an absolute disgrace. I can tell you I sent certified mail out for a different bunch of properties, and I can promise you one thing. Here within a reasonable amount of time, I'm going to find this gentleman, not just that property, but 1445 Huxley, all the train cars that are sitting around dilapidated. If it's $1,000 a day, it's $1,000 a day, and I'm going to get the elephant out in the room. Hopefully everybody backs me with it because I don't want to hear attorneys, oh, they can't do this, he's going to the Rural Training Commission or whatever. I don't want to hear all that. Some of you have to stand up and stop worrying about being politically correct. Because I'm going to tell you, you can drive down one street, there's a house totally down and its roof is sitting on it. Chief will tell you. I know a lot of you seen it. Why is it not bulldozed yet? What are we waiting for? So when you have houses like that and you have half boards up on other houses and $18,500 on the side of a home, and you let this man come in and out of court constantly and nobody does nothing, I'm not trying to say I'm making an excuse for myself. What do you want me to do when we have 24 tires sitting outside the City Hall building? He'll tell you there was twine in some of the tires. that was into the ground of the grass. It had to be there at least 3 to 5 years at our own City Hall building. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a germaphobe. I don't like using a public toilet. Maybe that's not something you want to put out here or something like that. But you know what? When I look at the tires outside and stuff like that, I don't even know if I want to go to the bathroom here. I know that sounds funny, but there's the pride factor I'm talking about. And I don't want to think that, you know, we're just talking about the druggy people back there and stuff. There could be somebody in this building that's not taking care of their property correctly. I won't name names, I drive around every day. I make it a point to go up and down every street at least once a day that I'm on duty. I make it a point to go out and talk to people and encourage them to be on the neighborhood watch, because Kathy does a great job with that. And you know what, she needs more help. There's 20, 25 people show up in neighborhood watch. You talk about pride. There should be one person on every block recognized. I'm very flattered that you guys give credit to the chief about response time and stuff. There is, what, 14 gentlemen, 13 gentlemen, 13 gentlemen. I see them every day. I take my hat off to them. I wouldn't want their job. Remember, I've been in somewhat of law enforcement. I still wouldn't want their job. You want people to clean everything up and come up with solutions and stuff? Let's grow a little bit. And I'm not going to explain what I mean there. I'm talking about some heart. You need to step up. We need to get bulldozers, whatever you do. Once you start showing these people you're serious, it's like when you're taught when you're a kid. Mayor, I'm sure you heard this too. If a bunch of bullies are picking at you, what do? You pick the biggest one and you knock them down. The other ones will learn a lesson. And if he can knock you back down, so be it. At least he knew you were there. No one knows you're here. What I brought up to the chief numerous times, and it bothers me, from Alamosa to Monte Vista, you got a train track going down through there. You go down to Walmart in Alamosa, and across the street, prime land that no one can use because everybody's allowed the rights of the railroad to dictate what you find people deserve, like a Fridays, a Dave and Buster's, and on and on and on. But they can't do it because they don't have the rights to go across the train track. That's embarrassing. You also have the biggest farmland. You're saying about 98.5% of the water use is agriculture and stuff like that. You have steers, horses, everything. Everybody likes the horse ride and everything else like that. But yet, if you go to Las Vegas, Nevada, what does everybody think it's known for? Gambling that. You know what the biggest attraction in Las Vegas, Nevada is? Christy, help me out. Professional bull riding. That brings more money into the economy than anything. And you guys, I've been to Las Vegas because I lived there. I don't see a lot of bulls around Summerlin area or nothing like that. But somehow they attract these people. Yes, they have the glitz and glamour. But you have all that land out in the middle there and stuff. You could have a big arena, maybe attract them in. The Little League World Series, where we're from, Montoursville, Pennsylvania, it only happens 1 week a year. It supplies all of Williamsport with the funds that they need. You only need an attraction here once to show who you are. You don't have it. I come up from Alamosa when I first come up for the job. You got a gorgeous sign, Monte Vista, there on the right. You know what's on the left? I apologize, Mayor. On the left is a salvage yard. And there's junk outside of it. To this poor man's business. And you know, thank God we're trying to get rid of train cars. That's one of my biggest goals. Because they look terrible. And Gene, he'll tell you, we had a nice little conversation and the fight and everything. What's the fight about? This is your land. Fight for it. Dictate for it. It's hard for me to believe that this poor gentleman, you were teasing the oldest in the room and stuff. I feel bad for him. He's paid taxes here, he's done everything here and stuff like that. And to watch it get deteriorated down because of complacency, it's hard to watch. It's not something I like teaching my kids.
Jeff, let me interrupt you just a
Yeah,
little
sorry.
bit. So we get back onto the water issue and.
Sorry.
Anybody else that
Thank
we?
you, Jim.
Are you related?
Rena Boucher again. I've understood from the beginning what Gary Johnson, Councilor Johnson was trying to do. I appreciate someone digging deep down and wanting to give back. As a citizen, I don't need a dividend. Or might I say, let's redefine dividend. Tackle the really hard job that you guys have on your plates. And it's not just one, it's many, many, many. So when we talk about giving back at a dividend, was it 1998 when we passed, long before I got around, you would have been around, 1998, there was a bond issue passed? This town has been working hard. It hasn't always shown, it hasn't always whatever, but we've been working, and it's now up to you to continue that work. That's the dividend I want. I don't need something back in my pocketbook, I don't need whatever. Just continue to do the things that you know are the right things to do, and I look at you and I know you're all gonna do it. Just like the previous council, and the previous council, and the previous council, and they did what they could with what they had, and I don't know if the job gets easier, I don't know if it gets harder, probably both in some ways, but that's the dividend I think that the citizens want, is to see you continue to do the best you can for Monte Vista.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raina.
Well said.
Yes.
Well said, Raina.
Jenny Nearing again. So Councilor Johnson, you were asking about, can you give me something to grab hold of, to take to this community as a reward? And my thought is that adversity can be galvanizing, and you guys shouldn't shy away from taking on something that might be perceived negative, put a positive spin on it, educate your constituents. Raina spoke to your role as educators. And you can see a response from a community when you ask them to become a community around an issue. And something as simple as water restrictions are not going to initially be welcomed, but you've heard a lot of reasons in the room that water restrictions would be a prudent thing to do. All our infrastructure, our drought conditions. And I think that could be an issue that you guys could take on and show your constituents that you're making some hard decisions for everyone's well-being. And that can be a galvanizing issue that the citizens of Monte Vista could understand that we all need to do our part. When I say adversity can be galvanizing, what comes to mind is something like rationing during World War II. Who would be excited about, butter and meat rationing, or victory gardens, and all of this predates me. But you read about these things and you know that those are the sort of things that people rise to the occasion, and a shared sacrifice is a galvanizing experience for a community. So I would suggest that perhaps water restrictions would be a great thing to do right now, and you're going to get pushback, but everyone in this room, it appears, would be has expressed a desire for conservation, or at least a desire that we shouldn't incentivize water use. So I would just suggest that you would consider seriously water restrictions for this year and permanent ones, because it's a prudent thing to do. And if you're really behind it and you have the opportunity to act as educators, I think it has the potential to be a galvanizing issue that could lead to a lot of community pride. It could be something that Monte Vista is the first community in all of Colorado that puts into place permanent water restrictions. Something like that. First community in the San Luis Valley.
Sure.
It's tipping our hat to our ag community. So I just encourage you to you don't need to have you don't need a cookie to get everybody rallying. Sometimes you can spin it into a cookie.
I'm from Southern California and Southeast Texas, and water rationing was pretty much automatic.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's, and under the circumstances, because it's kind of all built up, this has been going on for quite a while. And especially with it's a one-season drought, that's what I'm believing. Yeah, but if whatever, it's still a drought, and even if it does continue, it gets even worse, but we gotta start somewhere. And that's certainly a good place to start, so. I appreciate any input that anybody can come up with to bring this town together, everything that Officer Jeff was talking about. Those are, I'm familiar with everything that he mentioned. And there are ways that we can do this, but we gotta do it together.
I have one more quick question. On the keep the lights on effort for Neighborhood Watch, there were a couple weeks during the winter where we were asked to keep just turn your porch light on.
Yeah.
Was there any incentive it seemed like there was an incentive for someone to get a motion detector light, or I thought I remember reading something in the newspaper that if someone didn't.
Neighborhood Watch had a couple of different things that they did. I don't, Kathy, did they get given out yet, or were they part of a raffle? I can't remember.
Yeah, we gave away some lights.
Raffles, right?
It was a drawing, it was a token thing.
So something on a similar sort of incentive would be for like water restrictions. You know, the pushback the pushback I envision you getting is that, you know, my schedule is too, you know, inconvenient for me to only water in the evenings or in the early mornings. And perhaps there could be a raffle for a water timer that you simply attach to. So there's a lot of incentives out there.
Just thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And that works. We have to do something. We gotta do something different. We need to make a change.
Can I ask one last question on that? I just said to the chief, you're all thinking the force put on a great production about what the dire need is. What happens next year if the winter goes the same way again this year, 2 years in a row? Will you have any water at all? No one's even asked that.
Yes,
We will have water.
we will have
Our
water,
neighbors will.
but what you need to take that picture right there. Fill that thing with as many straws as you can get in it. And then everybody sit here and try to take a drink out of that and watch it go away. That's the situation we're in. And it'll be lower next year than it is this year. So based on aquifer, so yes.
Well, and actually, we're working on last year's water. What we're using now is
Yeah.
in the reservoirs, and that's last year's water. Next year, we're gonna have a big dent. There's gonna be a lot less water, unless we have a really wet summer.
Now, we all know the problems that we're facing, and I have just a couple of words that I wrote down that I've worked with in relation to this issue as well as many others, as well as being in business. I'm a businessman from the old days, and the two words are maintain or grow. We can't, you can't, maintaining is falling back. It's, if you're not growing, you're slipping back. We need to, gosh, we got some terrific issues to deal with water, there's no question about that. But we've got to concentrate on growing. We've got to have the attitude that this can work. We've got this business development system working here that's, we're waiting to see some massive results from that, but we have to grow, and we all on the council are of that same mind, that we've got to grow. And if part of it is using Ms. Naring's idea, I'm all for it, whatever it takes, but we've got to do something for some cohesiveness to bring everybody together and have the vision. Our first core value, like I said, was faith, and that's the same thing. We've got to believe that this can work. and I believe it can. I'm still a new guy in town, but I'm not going anywhere. I fell in love with this town the way it was, and I'm happy to be here now, to be in some kind of a position to bring that result together. I've used the term "save this town." Maybe that's a little harsh, but it's more than saving, it's growing. And I think together we can do that.
I'm gonna go ahead and just maybe close the hearing so you folks can get back to doing the other stuff. But before I do that, I would just like to say that, you know, I appreciate all the folks coming to these meetings. Most of the council meetings that I go to, there's 1 or 2, 3 people. So the best thing you folks can do is come to a meeting and keep the pressure on. So thanks. Now with that, I'm gonna close the hearing.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Go back into session. The city council meeting. Okay. Need a liquor license?
You need water for that, do you?
Well, depends on you mix it.
So I bring to you tonight renewal liquor license for the Monte Vista Country Club, doing business as the Monte Vista Golf Club at 101 Country Club Drive. They have submitted all proper documents. There will be some change in their staffing, which has to go through fingerprinting, which they have submitted all their paperwork. I have checked with the PD, they have had no issues. I would recommend that renewal for their liquor license be granted at this time.
I'd motion to approve the liquor license for the Monte Vista Country Club doing business as Monte Vista Golf Club at 101 County Club Drive, Monte Vista, Colorado 81144.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we renew the liquor license. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Councilor Ellsworth?
Aye.
Councilor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilor Segola?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Resolution, Forrest, will you present the resolution for the 2018-2023 strategic plan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you are well aware, and I think the public may be somewhat aware, the council embarked with the management team of the city on the creation of a strategic plan for 2018 to 2023. The plan that's included in your packet tonight is the base plan. It is the outline of where we're going. The core mission, value statements, those things are pretty much set in stone part of the plan. And then we have a 2-year plan and a 4-year plan. And assuming that the council approves the strategic plan tonight, then I get to go back to all my staff and we will start working on some nuts and bolts and some timelines and we'll achieve different things. There's some committees that need to be set up. There's a review of our infrastructure, which is heavily leveraged to public works. So then we will present to the council meeting, probably at the second meeting in May, a kind of timeline frame. Not necessarily for adoption, but we'll give it to you in advance, you can look at it. And we can, show the public what we're gonna try to do from a planning standpoint to achieve both the 2-year goals, mostly focusing on that. So you have a resolution this evening, 03-2018, adopting the 2018-2023 strategic plan for the city of Monte Vista, Colorado. I will say that staff very much enjoyed working with the council on this. It was kind of a fun process. If you like strategic planning, I thought it was fun. And there was good input all around. I really appreciated the fact that the council provided a lot of input and the management team, and then we were able to meld those into kind of a central direction. There are no perfect strategic plans. Never seen one. Exxon probably doesn't have a perfect strategic plan, but it seems to work. And this is a living, breathing document. You're adopting it by resolution, but obviously it can be amended from time to time. something else becomes, more apparent that we need to get after it quicker. But I appreciate all the work of the council on it, and I hope that you would pass this resolution this evening.
Thank you, Forrest. I would like first to say I appreciate your leadership and innovative developing, or helping us develop this entire strategic plan, and I believe it's going to work. And having said that, I move that we adopt resolution number 03, 2018, the 2018 to 2023 strategic plan for the city of Monte Vista, Colorado.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the resolution 03-2018. Is there any more discussion? Anita?
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Ellsworth?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Forrest. Appreciate all the hard work the staff put into that, and I had a blast doing it with the staff.
It was fun.
Okay, Forrest, you doing the next one as well?
Yes, sir, I am.
Lay it on us, man.
So in front of you this evening, I have resolution number 04, 2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Monte Vista, Colorado, establishing watering restrictions on sprinkler systems and lawn irrigation. Our current iteration of municipal code allows, under section 10-3-140, sprinkling restrictions for the City Council to establish restrictions for the use of water for irrigation or sprinkling purposes. It's kind of interesting how this probably came about in the thought process for this year. Rob and I have been working with some engineers on a water efficiency plan. One of those things that's required by the state of Colorado to have, and which costs a fair amount of money. The purpose of that plan is to look at what you're doing with your water systems and supply and outreach every 8 years and kind of update that. So, interestingly, there's a whole section on ordinances and conservation measures, and this is highly recommended in the plan. You will actually get to see the actual draft of the plan, I think maybe the second meeting in May or the first one in June, and then we'll actually have a public hearing to, receive comment on it, and we'll get it out to the public. But this would be one of the first steps in that plan that we'd recommend. There's quite a number of other efforts the city is either already undertaking or that it needs to undertake. There's things in there like improving the way our water system talks to itself. We had a little water outage the other night that was, due to electrical issues and wind issues and communication issues. And there are better systems to make that stuff work better for us. And particularly since we don't have a tank, if one of the pumps goes down, it can cause problems. Sometimes it doesn't. But this time it did. And the guys jumped right on it, got it fixed really quickly. They did a really good job figuring out what it was. But we have a lot of interesting features to our water system. But this is a first step in actually implementing that water efficiency plan. So I would certainly recommend to council that you consider this and approve it this evening.
I have a question. Oh, you got a question behind you there first.
I do. The title of the resolution deals with sprinkler systems and lawn irrigation. Is there exemptions for non-commercial agriculture within the city limits?
Non-commercial agriculture?
Yeah, having a garden. 1/5 of my entire parcel is a garden. And with our last frost date here being averaging around June 8th, in order for you to get sown seeds to take, quite often they require water every single day. And so I'm just curious whether or not those of us who like to sustain ourselves by the fruits of our own labor will be able to keep those seeds sown, especially with the wind and dryness we've had this year. It's going to be difficult. And I guess that was just my clarification, because in line item 1, it says the council deems it necessary to place restrictions on water for the use of irrigation and sprinkling, and the title specifically says lawn irrigation. So I didn't know if there would be exemptions for agriculture within the city limits, again, for non-commercial purposes.
Well, that's a really good question. It does say that in the title, and I think that was primarily what we're getting at for the use, council members, and to answer that question. This is a desert, as was pointed out earlier, and I have a garden too, so I totally understand where that's coming from. And what do we grow here? Bluegrass. Where does that come from? Kentucky. More water falls out of the sky in Kentucky in 2 months than falls here in a whole year. So, you know, I think that as long as we understand that that's the intent of the council, it does say in the ordinance, restrictions which deems necessary, upon the use of water for irrigation or sprinkling purposes. And I think the title would be, unless the city attorney disagrees, we should amend this document. The title says sprinkler systems and lawn irrigation. It does not address your garden. And, you know, honestly, monitoring garden watering, really difficult. Lawns, not so much. So, I don't know if you had a thought on that, Mike?
Yeah, I think you're fine with the resolution as it sits, but,
With no restriction on garden
Right,
watering.
because it specifically says sprinkler systems and lawn irrigation,
Right.
so.
Good. I have a question. Does the city have a conservation plan that they can put into effect? Obviously, we've got to maintain parks and everything within the city. But I don't know that, has that been discussed, or is it something that will be?
We are working towards that in the water efficiency plan. Do we technically have a conservation plan? Well, if you look at Chapman Park, what's that once again? Big old giant, from the aerial photos, piece of bluegrass. And we use it for a lot of different things. You know, but there is gonna come a day, if the weather patterns continue, where actually something like AstroTurf or some such product would be more useful and beneficial than watering grass.
Well, I wasn't thinking of anything that radical.
You know me, Gary, I like radical. But no.
Just a plan, I just want to make sure that we're meeting the citizens in this whole situation. Yeah, I'll cut back, but it looks like you've increased the watering around, you know, the city.
Well, we certainly
And
will
we
not.
have to maintain that.
Yeah, I mean.
Just want to make sure that we're working with them.
We will do our best to conserve water that the city can and still keep. I mean, we don't keep our parks like, you know, lush Kentucky bluegrass green. That just doesn't happen because that's a lot of water and fertilizer. We were able to fertilize, was that last fall? Last year. So, you know, we will do the best we can to conserve water. I did want to bring up one point in this conservation thing as well that came up earlier in the public hearing, and I wish that I had said it then. But when we talk about water restrictions imposition, when we came in with water, you know what water meters did for the city? You know what they really did from a long-term standpoint? People disliked them immensely, right?
Cut back the usage.
But it cut back enough on the usage that it saved our bacon on the state's water rules, because they looked at their averaging period, and here was this huge amount of use we had. Then here came, I think as Councilor Johnson alluded to, meters came in, use went down. That differential in that use and the way that the state has written the rules saved our bacon. So it was a pretty smart move on the part of the city for a lot of reasons. Not only that's required by state statute at this point, or state law, whichever you want to call that, but the fact is that saved our bacon. And saving all the water that we can is really important. So, you know, we think this measure will help with that. We will do the best we can with the public spaces. You know, we have talked about doing some different things with the spaces over the next few years to see if we can reduce, because some parks, there's pieces of the grass that are never used, right? Some parts of the parks are used heavily. Chapman is used heavily as a lawn space, but some of our other parks, right around the playgrounds, the picnic grounds. So, you know, we will try to adapt to more xeriscaping. And actually, I wrote a note during the hearing. I was like, another community I worked in, we actually had a xeriscaping program, provided lots of public information on how to do that. And it can look better than bluegrass, you know, and in the end, it saves you money because you're not buying water, so.
There was a question for.
I just had one thing. We had a garden last year as well. I think the important part if we address gardens is that watering in the daytime, it has to do more with ambient temperature, but a good rule of thumb is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that. So I would suggest if we do gardening, then we don't restrict that. They could do it every day if they need to, but let's not do it during that period of time in the daytime when we're losing water due to
Well,
evaporation.
And I appreciate that comment. I'll say from an enforcement standpoint, very difficult to enforce. We're not gonna have our code officer peeking over every fence in the middle and go, well, I know everyone has a garden. I'm gonna go look and see if they're watering in the middle of the day. You know, I mean, to be honest.
We can recommend things
We
like
could certainly
soaker
recommend
hoses
that.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, conservation in that matter as well, because there are products that can be purchased that are organic that will, your water usage will go down. My little yard that looks dead with all the weeds, of course, but when we do water restrictions, it's no big deal to me, because what I put on my grass, I can water it one time a week and be fine. But, Rob, you had something to say?
I was just gonna let council know that when we discussed these restrictions I was planning on in the parks is to try to conserve water. We wanna make sure our parks are green and they look inviting to the public, because they are something that the public gauges the city on. But I also recognize what we're asking the citizens to do, especially those that do have green grasses. So, yeah, I think we should eat some of that ourselves, and we should play by the same rules.
Appreciate that.
Who's gonna motion this one then?
Have to find it. I move that we accept the resolution 042018, establishing watering restrictions on sprinkler systems and lawn irrigation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept this resolution 04218. Is there any more discussion? Anita?
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Counselor Ellipfort?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council, and we will get a public information campaign. This doesn't take effect until May 1st. We'll make sure we get the word out through all of our avenues of communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest. Thank you, Bert.
No, could you talk to me?
You're gonna get tired of seeing me in front of you. So I bring forward to you the award of contract for janitorial services. On March 29th, I held open bid openings for janitorial services. We received 6 bids. I sat down with Forrest and we went through each and every one of the bids and their scope of service. And in your package, you will see all 6 of those bids. And tonight, after review of all of those bids, I would like to recommend that council award the bid to Absolute Carpet Care. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
What has our bill been typically?
We roughly pay around $2,100 a month for cleaning care services. Any questions?
Nita, real quick, that's for City Hall and
That includes City Hall, the Kids Connection, and the chamber, the info center.
So it's
Okay.
3 bills.
So it's all 3 buildings.
Okay, that's a little more balanced.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Bless you, Nina. She sneezed.
Oh, I didn't know where that came from.
So we need to motion that in, right?
Yes, sir. Motion to award.
Motion to award.
I move we award the contract as requested to Absolute Carpet Care for cleaning.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion?
Mayor, I'd also like to just state that that services will begin on May 1st. And if Forrest would go ahead and set up that contract with the new cleaning service.
I would amend that motion to include the responsibility of establishing the contract with janitorial services with absolute carpet care be left to the city manager.
I second that.
Any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Segala?
Aye.
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Receive and approve financial reports. Approval. Guys look at them. Do you have any financial reports to approve?
No, sir.
Staff proposals, reports, and actions. Forrest?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. A lot of times I go through this super fast, but because we're having one meeting, I'll take more time, but I did want to address a couple things here in my memo that might be particularly of interest to the public. A few weeks ago, the manager of Big R reached out to the city and asked about whether they were required to have a cross-driving connection between Big R and the market. And he obviously had talked to the manager of Top Value, who wasn't really thrilled about the concept of that being shut off. But, you know, if you look at the parking design for Big R, it's not really that conducive to flow through traffic, and the manager of Big R is kind of like, you know, someone's going to get hit. So what we did is we went back and looked at the development plan approvals. We looked at the plats that were filed, we looked at recorded easements, etc. And what we found was that when the parcel with Big R in it was developed as one development, and then the part with Top Value and the bank was a second development. There are no recorded cross-access easements between the two. So there is certainly not a requirement that we could find that was recorded or any of our documents that indicated that they were required to provide pass-through traffic. So we also talked to the fire department if there were any issues regarding that being closed. They asked that if Big R is going to close that they put a gate there with a padlock and, you know, they give keys to the fire department. Honestly, Patrick was like, well, you know, it's not an issue to fight a fire there even if we don't have a gate, but we prefer to have it. So I spoke to the manager of Big R about that, and I also asked him, in the interest of people learning a new route, that they post signage first and wait for at least 30 days before they close that off. But unless there's, you know, there's maybe a civil issue between those folks, but from the city standpoint, I don't see that there's anything that we have that's enforceable to prevent that. So, particularly since they were two separate developments. And, you know, normally what you'd find in that case is they're called reciprocating cross-access easements. I find no record of those existing. So, I wanted the public to know that's going to happen. And I think that Big R will be sensitive to the issue there of cross-traffic. But I do also, that's a, you know, that parking lot is smaller than it should be. And when it was originally developed, the applicant got a variance from the city. So it doesn't park as many cars as would be required to under our code computation. They went to the Board of Adjustments and got a variance, which made for a pretty tight little parking lot in my estimation. And I do shop there, and you know, I find it a little cozy for my truck, which isn't that big of a truck, but nevertheless. But that's what we have to work with. The variance goes with the land, not with the owners. So the parking is what it is. And so I understand their concern about either a customer, you know, they're like, well, a lot of customers, they get in the parking lot and their kids are like zip into the store. And, you know, not all kids are really good at looking both ways. So we, you know, I understand their concerns and they will be moving forward with that. And I don't know if you were to talk about National Night Out tonight, Chief. Okay, I'll let you.
Go ahead.
Well.
Redundant.
Redundancy's good. Kathy and Neighbor Watch and the chief and some other folks, including Margot and Donna Weehee with San Luis Valley Health, and put together a pretty darn good neighborhood night out party. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think that unless the council feels otherwise, I'd recommend that the city, we generally have an open house every year, that we have that as a combined effort. We're going to have, you know, there's going to be fire, EMS, state troopers, National Guard. You know, it ought to be like a really fun event, fun evening. And by moving our open house to coincide with that, we can pitch in. You know, for our open house, we usually provide some, you know, burgers and chips and drinks, and so we can all do that at one time. And I dare say that, you know, after Potato Fest, people are kind of tired for a little while, and that's in our open house, like was usually the week after that. So I think it'd work better, and I just, council kind of concur on that.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
that's what we need to do with a number of our events.
Okay. I've had a couple of citizens call me about the Frontier Theater project. You all know where the Frontier Theater is, up by Center. Clearly outside of our jurisdiction. But we're trying to help get information out, and they were at the Upper Rio Grande Economic Development annual meeting, and the folks that are doing the development were presenters, and tomorrow I will have a copy of their presentation. Apparently in its current form, it's too big to email. But I have a thumb drive coming tomorrow, and when I get it, I'll see if I can press it down. But I know the chamber's been getting calls, we have. So, you know, just get the information out. We'll probably put it on our website, put a compressed version on Facebook and stuff like that so people can get an idea. In the short term, you know, this year they're actually supposed to start doing some construction of infrastructure and some initial yurts, which are kind of these yurt pods. They look really cool. And then their other lodging feature look like Quonsets. Now, if you see the interior picture of those, they're not like any Quonset I've ever seen. But anyway, they're going to have limited programming this year. They're going to put in their wastewater treatment and water supply systems and those kind of things. And, it's a really interesting concept. The other thing I did want to talk, well, two other things. Now, I'll drop one of those. But moving pieces, I titled that in my report to you and in this report tonight. We are making some changes at City Hall. In fact, where offices are, partly to consolidate like all of the PD stuff in the PD as a separate unit. City Clerk's office, and were you going to report on this tonight, Lisa? I'm just ruining everybody's reports. But essentially we moved the City Clerk, Deputy City Clerk, and the Judge's offices back to our old offices that were on the northwest corner of the building. And the plan is for the old council chambers to become the court. This will end up providing better security for the court functions, and also an ability for people to come in and pay their fines and court costs and those kind of things to the clerk's office. And as we do that, we're moving towards, there is a design somewhere of what we had planned to do and what we are going to do. We're going to look at the cost of it, of course, but create a centralized reception area in the front, which isn't super complicated because right next to where Aaron, our receptionist, sits, there's a blank wall that opens right into the foyer. So we actually would put a customer service window in that, create secure doors on either side of that, which she could then buzz people in to either side. If they want to go see the PD and probation, they could go and wait in that waiting area. And if they want to see somebody else at City Hall, you know, you think that, you know, and it's kind of a security measure for our staff. Because anyone can walk in the front of City Hall right now and they're there, okay? And ironically, I just was over at the urgent care clinic And they have a nice little reception area, it's a new building, but you know what they have there now? They put in those windows with a speaker thing and a little slide under thing. You know, and it's happening. South Fork, or Del Norte did that with their town hall. And, you know, it's sad to say in this world, but we need a little bit better security. We have, and we've been working towards that the last 2 years in this building, and that will be not maybe the final piece, but will improve the flow of our operations, provide for a safer, more controlled environment for our employees, and actually I think it'll result in better customer service for the people that come to the front. So look for that to be coming soon, but we've already started on it, and I think that we'll be more efficient and safer, and you know, see things out happening out in the world, and you always say it won't happen here, but every day I worry about that a little bit. You know, that we're not protecting our employees as best we can, and we need to try to do that. The other advantage to what we're going to do is it will provide for better handicapped accessibility, Section 504 compliance for City Hall. People can get in and out front there. Rob gets a scooter in just out fine, right? Hopefully you won't be seeing that scooter too much more, but and we have people in wheelchairs and such that can get in there. But it doesn't really meet the intent of the law. It's a federal regulation that most of the rest of City Hall meets it. We've got a handicapped accessible bathroom, you know, some of these other features, obviously, the council chamber is handicapped accessible. We advertise if folks need assistance in that area, that we can provide that. But those front doors are problematic. And honestly, if a federal inspector came down and looked like that, I have a copy of the 504 regulations, and they'd go, really? I'd say, yeah, really. I just had to do a 504 report for the state for our CDBG grant that we have for the URA, and I put that in there. I'm like, yes, we know this is not wholly compliant, but we are working on fixing it. And the report was accepted. Most of the other stuff we do pretty well, but that we have not done well. So we'll work on that and improve it. And unless you have any other questions, that's my report.
Thank you, Forrest.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
Thank you, Forrest.
Mr. Trujillo.
Thank you. I'm not going to take very much time other than to let you folks know that hit the deck running. And there's a lot of things we've been trying to handle. I've had a couple of calls with Cirsa and Forrest, and met with Nita, met with the judge a couple of times. I've met with the chief, and everybody's been very cooperative, very helpful. And so we've got a couple meetings next week on some properties with the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustments to maybe make some buildings usable and accessible here in the town. We'll see how those come out, but been working with the folks here, working with Forrest. If he calls me, I'll be here right away, and vice versa. And so far things have been really working well with all the staff. Looks like we got a pretty good crew. So got some litigation we're working on, and some different projects on properties, and so there's plenty to do. And you know, I think maybe by next meeting might have a few more things to talk about, but basically we're busy running. So
Very good. Thank you, Matt.
thank you.
Chief?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Try to keep it quick, kind of in the same vein, but stop me if I kind of get too fast. We've got a lot of events going on. Some we've already done. The Child Abuse Awareness Carnival, that was pretty amazing. I was surprised. There was over 1,000 kids that went through there at the Alamosa Recreation Center. They moved it inside because of the weather, but it was phenomenal. It was zero charge for all the kids and all the parents. Food, all kinds of festivities. First responders were there. We were giving out stickers, and it was just a really good event and something to maybe keep in mind, Gary, for future things. I think there's a lot to be said about what this town already does for the young ones, but It was really cool, and we had our representation there as well. I don't really have anything to recap. I was just kind of keeping that on the agenda so I didn't forget that we had a neighborhood watch meeting on Monday. It was average attendance, and I think it was a very good meeting. We did a SLV 911 training where one of their head instructor, Ashley, came in, and she's a dispatcher for 13 or 14 years, and now she's been managing the reverse 911 or SLV 911 system for the last 3, I believe she said. So she's got the premier knowledge about the system, and we just wanted to have people have a little more confidence in it. Thanks, Margo.
Thank you.
There it is. We also talked just a little bit about National Night Out, and there seems to be generating plenty of interest. Everybody's excited, lots of ideas, more than we can possibly get done, but we'll scale back, and and you and I are gonna get wet. As long as your wing is good by then. Dunk tank, we'll see how that goes. Bike safety rally, that's coming up, kind of not much to say about that. Drug take back, just again for the citizens. One of my management classes that I'm in right now, it came up that probably at the PD, it's gonna get the least amount of exposure. There seems to be something to be said about the stigma of coming to the police department, turn your drugs in. So I kind of get that. I didn't, but I do now, and we're gonna start working on the next place to put that. Maybe think about it. We'll still manage it. Still some safety issues. I still don't want anybody to get, in trouble. You're exposed to, an awful lot of drugs at some point. So we're gonna be careful with it, but keep it in mind that that's one of the suggestions that came up from some of my student, my fellow students that say, hey, maybe you would be more successful. We probably have, it's a 22-pound bag, and we probably have 12 pounds already. But it's been about a month. So I expected more. South Fork got a lot more in their first couple of weeks to a month, but maybe that's partially why. We're not the only one in Monte either, so there's a couple. So it's been a good program, but I thought maybe at the chamber, just thoughts, because there is a safety piece there too, so I'm a little concerned. It is boltable to the floor, but last thing we need is that to be out there, that we got our box stolen. National Night Out, again, other than the mayor and I getting dunked, I don't really have a lot to add to that. Other than, I think this will probably be one of the premier events for Neighborhood Watch, and I think a way for us to not only get out there as councilmen, and I'm just kidding about the dunk tank, I don't know if it's gonna go for sure or not, but we need to at least maybe be out there and be cooking, helping do the cooking. We're gonna have probably flipping burgers, Forrest is working on a grill. So there's gonna be a little bit of that hometown feel. At the same time, there's gonna be a lot going on. A lot for the kids, a lot for the neighbors. We're still trying to figure out how we can kind of promote the neighborhoods, maybe with shirts or different colors so that people can kind of immediately go, hey, I didn't know you lived in my, whatever we call it, a district, a group, an area, whatever. There's a map that we were supplied by Margaret, but I'd never seen it before, and I guess it was proposed a long time ago about breaking the city up into 9 sectors, I believe.
Yeah, she and I talked. We're gonna locate that somehow.
Yes, still trying to find it, and the one you brought me is blank.
I know that.
Oh, I thought that was an example, and we could recreate it, but I figured if it's already kind of got some publicity out there or some recollection, we could use that one. But I think that has some merit to use. Near and dear to me, so next month, the 16th is the day we're gonna celebrate police work, or police week. If you guys could be involved as citizens, what I think would be the neatest thing for us is we're gonna do a procession. We, as whoever can attend, and you guys are actually welcome as well. You could ride along with us, get in the cop cars, however you wanted to get involved. But at the minimum, we're gonna drive from South Fork through the town. And to be out in the area along the main street, just kind of showing your tribute to the officers as they come through. I don't know the exact time, but drive time from South Fork at whatever speed we will probably go, probably slow some times and speed limit at other times. But probably between 4:30, 4:45, something like that. It would be nice if we could get some support as we go through town. And then the main honoring and the list, the naming of the following over the years will be in Alamosa, behind City Hall there, and we'll be in attendance there, and everybody's welcome there as well. And then they're talking about some sort of a get-together afterwards, whether it be a ball or just some sort of dinner, and again, everybody, it's kind of open to everybody, just a support and an honoring of the fallen. Crime Stoppers, I know it's kind of been hit or miss, but it's coming up on the 27th again, 11 o'clock in the morning. They're gonna hire this, they're gonna kind of, not hire, select new board members, new committee chairs, new committee members, and like I talked, if anybody had the time, it would be good time to get involved as either an honorary member or an actual board member, but at least to kind of get money on the map with some more involvement in Crime Stoppers and the mayor's daughter-in-law,
No,
And
my
friend.
son and his.
son's friend, okay.
Yes.
I get confused on who everybody is, but she's been amazing. Everywhere I turn around, she's involved in something. But she can't make the meetings, so I'm just gonna get her involved afterwards. I'll just bring her the information. I think she's gonna be on the marketing committee, so thank you for that.
Awesome.
And it's at Alamosa Sheriff's Office, if anybody's wants to attend, 11 a.m. on the 27th. I wanted to fix something, Shield 616, I was asked if they had specific dollars geared towards local donations, local benefit for fire, and for police, excuse me, and they do. I actually thought it just went to a national fund, and then they made every effort to keep it in some areas, but that's not true. There is actually certain percentages of all donations that stay here local, and the Safeway is fostering or sponsoring a program where all you gotta do is hit a button and you can give between, I think, $1 and $10 right at the cash register to 616, directly related to them and their benefit that they're providing the community mainly through their vest, but they have some other things going as well. So I thought that was pretty cool, and Pastor Bob kind of made me aware of that.
It's only until May 6th. It's a 30-day thing, but 85% of the money that is collected at that Safeway comes right back to this police department.
And that's, the 616
Yeah.
is for the vest,
Correct.
for everybody that doesn't know.
Right.
Exactly. I don't know if you want to talk about the stats. We talked about last time what I would provide, and the incident activity report is what everybody seemed to kind of like, to talk about the crimes, our clearance rates, and then kind of showed maybe some trends. I don't have it, I can't put it relative to last year, and I don't know that it's even relevant, because we had real cyclical property crime issues, so I don't really want to be too optimistic right now. We're way below the average, way below the mean, definitely below the mode right now, but I don't know what that means. I think we're working hard. We definitely have some of our prime offenders from last year in a place where they can't do what they did, and I think that's helping a lot. So on the property crime trend, we're way down, but you compare it to last year about the same time, or about the same. So it's a little bit of an unknown what's going on, but where we ended last year was significantly different. And what wasn't listed is any kind of the clearance rates, and as you can see, we don't do a great job on property crimes. They're just tricky. I think everybody would agree if we had the money and time, we could probably do better on those, but most of our energy is towards the person crimes, and the clearance rates on those are significantly better. And I thank Raina for her plug, and we are pretty good at shoplifts. That's one of those that is higher than the average by far, and it's usually because of the owner's involvement. They do something, whether it be cameras, some description, a license plate, a quick phone call, as opposed to, usually 911, but sometimes we get a direct call because they know somebody's on duty. All that helps. So I think that's one of those rare crimes where you have a lot of constituents on scene that can help kind of be guardians to the property, as opposed to the midnight car break-ins and things like that. It does come back to the lights. I really think the lights are a big deal. I drove around here, I did a DUI shift in March, and I drove around early when I got here, and you can see the progression. Summer is even better, which I don't exactly know if that's us, or if it's just kind of a normal thing about summer, where there's a thought that it's not as long of a day, or you're out later at night and you just kind of forget to turn off your light, but there's a lot more lights on, especially in certain areas. I gotta give credit to most of the newer developments are much better than the older ones, and I think that's something that's very obvious when you're driving around. But if we could increase that, I think that all helps. I don't know exactly, like I said, what all of this is telling me yet, but we didn't do a very good job about inputting our data consistently. I really don't have a real good baseline of the years before, but I can probably pull out some totals. So there'll be times where we can compare ourselves to different years, but right now it's a little tricky. But I can tell you that their proactiveness is definitely up. Tickets, DUIs, I think they had 35 DUIs all of last year. We already have 16. They're really out there patrolling. It's a pretty aggressive group, and in a good way. I mean, they're very. I get very few complaints. Everybody has something to say about the officers and maybe how their case went, but not about how they were treated. And I think that's what matters right now. Administration, real quick, you know what happened with Tyler and Ezekiel. Mario is graduating on the 18th. I think I've talked about this before. We scored great there. We got the head of the class. That's pretty cool. So local guy, out of the local academy, first in his class. That's pretty cool. He's coming to Monte. Canine update. Jake is fully certified, so our lab is ready to hit the street. Two little caveats to that. One is his trainer is going to go on vacation for about 10 days, and we have to get his car ready. So we're probably 2 weeks out, but look out. Jake is a ball of fire, and if him and Heath can put together what each of them have going, look out. It could be fun. Sam just started. So Sam is in training, a German short-haired pointer, and he's going to be something else too. I don't know that he's quite as crazy as Jake, and I mean that in a good way, but he's got everything that's good to nose, and I think him and Patrick will make a good team as well. So they're coming. He won't be on the street probably till the first part of June, but by dead center summer, we'll be ready to go with both of them. We completed our April training. April was about some criminal procedure, criminal justice changes, courtroom testimony. We did quite a bit on death investigations, all kinds, from homicides to suicides, just to unattended deaths in general. And then we spent half a day at the range. We did a qual, everybody's qualified, and we did some training on pistol. So it was our good month of training. We just finished up yesterday. And moving to code, you got to meet Jeff. Jeff he's really energetic. He's got some really good ideas, and I think he's very busy. We took 4 loads to the dump just out of our backyard. So like he said, I think we need to set the bar as an organization and as individuals. If you're gonna drive by my house, it's gonna be up to snuff, and I think that's just the bottom line. I think everybody deserves that, and it has to start somewhere, and I think that we're the leaders. So my side of the building is gonna be as squared away as I can make it be, and with the Public Works help, they're gonna mow and do all their thing. We have the right lights out there, trying to get the one light to go off during the day to do our part of conservation, but it takes time. We're working there. We're working with a partnership with the shelter. Kathleen was really kind of instrumental in this as I was working to get a code enforcement officer. She said, hey, I'd really like to ride along. I don't know if you've been able to ride along or not.
But that's okay.
But Jeff is very appreciative. We're trying to create kind of a little bit of a memo of understanding maybe on what that looks like, and we'll try to get you guys out there more and more. But I feel it has been very, very beneficial, because I think Joe didn't click real well with the shelter when he was here, and Jeff is absolutely the opposite spectrum. I mean, I think he's an open book. He's an opinionated fella, and that's okay. But he's very willing to listen. But he's also very willing to tell you what he's thinking. So that's coming. And you can see, I don't know what you've heard or felt from the cleanup. 160 is clean. There's nobody parking there. There's nobody selling their stuff. The only one there is the Pinion guy, and I've been told he has permission. Long term, I don't know what we're going to make that look like, because let me rephrase that. He has a license. The railroad won't deny him or give him permission. They want to be neutral, and I'm not going to allow that to be enough if we go this way in the long run. Big John's has a deal with Sir Charles, and if he wants to allow permissions, that's kind of a natural progression of space there that maybe we could use for some of that. And I'm not real hype on the stolen, or the cars for sale, but for the sales, you know, until we get something better, we all talked about some potential, you know, open market kind of concept that's bigger than, you know, just right there in that little section. I mean, Sir Charles can't even turn his trailer around in there. So I get his point of why that wouldn't work for him, but it still could work in general. And then the ditch cleanup. I mean, Fennell's been amazing. I reiterate what Jeff said. What he does with those kids is above and beyond what I think I've ever seen. And then, you know, he mentors them. He reaches them, and that's the difference. You know, he doesn't just spend time with them. And then poor Fennell was sick that day, but Jeff and one of your brother, I mean, they were out there a good part of the day. I was busy with some other stuff, but a huge pile of trash, however many bags is it, 35 bags of trash, and then they sprayed the entire ditch. And the mayor, you know, he got his company to sell us a 55-gallon drum of vinegar at a decent price, and we were able to definitely beat the local Walmart price by far. And we got a lucky deal on some sprayers at Walmart, just like $5 a piece. I never seen them that low. And boom, there they were. So we bought like 5 or 6 of those. And I don't know what that means or what it looks like, but keep an eye on it, and it has the potential to at least be a partnership that got the trash out at the very minimum. And you got 20 people walking on the weeds. So at the bare minimum, we trampled them down a little bit and picked up the trash. And I think Jeff comes with a lot of energy that I think we need to remember, because it does, you know, that was very well said. It doesn't necessarily take a carrot to do the right thing. You know, it might just take an inspiration. You know, it might just take your neighbor to get his car that's been piled up in the front yard on, you know, no wheels or whatever, to get it out of the way, and you're like, man, I need to step it up as well, or whatever. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about what it takes to motivate people, and I think synergy is hard to define. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Anything for me?
When is the National Night Out?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's August 7th. It'll start at 5:30, go till 8, generally.
I'm gonna be busy that night.
Oh, yeah, busy is right. Busy getting back up on the platform.
Well,
At least it won't be potatoes. Mashed
Roll on up here. So, good evening, sorry it's getting kind of late, so I just wanted to give you kind of a report, a couple of things this week with the wind that we had. Went ahead and decided to open Sky High up to take people's limbs. Most of the trees that came down were on private property, so we cleaned up everything that was in the right of way. But we also recognize that the citizens have needs, and a lot of them may not have the means to get them disposed of. So we're gonna open Sky High. People can pile their limbs there in the dirt parking lot by our shop. And we will dispose of them once we collect them. So, do that. That kind of segues into the city cleanup day. For the last few years, we've always done a city cleanup day. Try to do it in coordination with the high school in Pirate Pride Day. Pirate Pride Day this year is May 10th, so we're gonna go ahead and hold our city cleanup days on the 11th and 12th of May. Okay. Of course, earlier was discussion on the water, and I appreciate what everybody said. One of the things that's been talked about a little bit is the power. It wasn't a power outage, it was more of a leg on the 3-phase went out, which caused the pump to go into default. We have an old, I'll call it a SCADA system. It's kind of a landline phone that's supposed to call up the other pumps and fire them up. That did not work, so the SCADA system we have now is you go to your faucet, like, and Dale calls me and says, hey, I got no water. So we get a hold of the other guys and we go out and we check and make sure we got what we need, so. So it's not the best skating, because I mean, technology today, we could do it where as soon as the sensor detects that there's a power failure or a pump issue, it automatically calls up another pump. And that's something we should be looking at trying to do. But I do believe that when the pumps did fire back up, that it might have caused a small water hammer. I'm not gonna confirm that, but that's what I'm saying. We had a leak on North Adams. We fixed that one. On Highway 160, we have another water leak, an active leak right now. I've got that coned off so people aren't driving on it. Dealing with the CDOT right-of-way is a little more complicated. We don't have the ability just to go out on our own and cut that and fix them. So I've got critters barricades lined up to do the traffic control, working on the permit, getting the permit from CDOT. Planning right now to excavate that on Tuesday, April 24th, next week. So we'll get that all fixed on Tuesday, go from there. And then what I actually wrote for you, and I'm gonna change it because I wanted to have a discussion, but seeing for the lateness, I figure I'll just kind of tell you what I'd like to do. And if you're okay with that, you can just simply give me a nod. If not, we'll keep it the way it is. And that's on our sweeper. Last year we had a major failure of the main fan assembly, and the machine is 6 years old, has very few hours compared to its age, and to lose the main fan assembly was really kind of depressing. And I looked for, causes, whether it was a lack of maintenance or anything like that, and it wasn't. It's just a nature of what that machine does, sucking up the dust and the limbs and everything else and the water. It wears out the chutes, and as the chutes wear, it allows small pinholes to go into the fan assembly and into the actual thing that generates the air, and we had to replace it. To repair that was $30,000. Okay, so that machine, brand new, is well over $300,000 to buy. So when we bought that in 2010, the idea that was gonna be kind of a 10 to 15 year machine, and with our budget situation, because that comes out of the general fund, try to push that to the 15-year mark. So it's a pretty good bet that we're gonna have to replace that fan assembly again before its life cycle is up. Right now, the trade-in value is slightly higher than what the machine repair cost. So the next time, it's gonna be a much harder decision, because we will put money into a losing proposition. So we invested $30,000 for a return of $80,000. Next time that machine won't be worth more than $40,000. So anyways, thinking of how we can extend the life cycle, going into the way we sweep every day from May 1st through October. And, thank you, I'm not sure I'm gonna use it that much. But every day we try to sweep Monday through Friday, different sections of town, and we do that every week. What I would like to propose is to change that up, and it would be option 3 for those of you that are following, and this is probably not gonna show, I don't know how to work this silly thing. There we go, is that option 3? Oh no, that's 4. Where am I at here? There we go. This one. And this option allows us to do the downtown, the school zones, and the major highways once a week, plus 1 week out of each month, I would do a section of town. And then so it's basically, we would run the sweeper 1 month out of each week to do town, all of town, and then 1 day of each week to do the downtown, to try to keep that clear and clean. that's what I would like. It would reduce the hours considerably and may actually get us to the 15-year mark before we actually have to look at that replacement again. At which time, if it does go out, it would be about the same time as we would be looking to get rid of it. So we wouldn't fix it, and we would just get rid of it and try to get a new piece of machinery. I don't believe that it's going to reduce what you're used to seeing in town as far as the cleanliness of the curbs and stuff. I don't believe so, because we would hit, when we fire up, we'll run for a couple of weeks to make sure we get all the sand and all the debris up. And the same thing in the fall before we close down after the leaves all fall. I'll run it until we pick up all the leaves, so. And like I said, but through those summer months, I think we would reduce several hours, 40 hours a week going on that machine. I think we can do it where we'd have basically probably real close to 80 hours total, and that would be for an entire month. So that's my proposal. Council, you guys don't need anything other than if you're okay with it, just kind of nod your head. If not, I need to know, and I just simply won't change it, and we'll go with what we got. And if it breaks down, it breaks down.
We don't have nothing.
We didn't have anything last year. I mean, we broke out an old sweeper that is really a time bomb. It has serious cracks in the fan assembly, and when it blows, it's gonna blow. So, so we did Stampede, and that's really all we used the sweeper for, just to make sure the streets were clean before Stampede and the parades. And we didn't do anything the rest of the year, because that repair took almost 6 weeks, because the fan assembly is not something you go and you buy off the shelf. It is made by Elgin specifically when the thing comes in. There are no repair parts. It's specifically made, so.
Well, your option 3 looks perfectly fine. That's the one that you're leaning towards.
Yeah.
The question is, you're gonna do one section of town per month. How many sections do you have?
The way I have it, it's not, the sections I have, they're all color coordinated. The red, let's see very well.
The top is a pointer.
Yeah, I need this one. So, the section that's red, right here, and then all of downtown, that's a day. And then the area that's in purple, the sweeper can do that in a day. And then what's in green, it can do in a day. So it's, and yellow is the same way. So the way I've got it set up, the sweeper can do, and I'm talking just the curb lines, all of these sections in 1 week, and then each week of the month, one day, we just do the reds. Whereas right now, we spend every day of every week, we do this exact same thing. This is done on Thursday nights, is the downtown, when everybody's sleeping, and that would still be the same case. You can't get to the downtown during business hours, but the residents would be doing during the day. And the idea is I want to post this in the paper and on our website, so our citizens will know that on Tuesday, we're going to be in this area, and they can move their cars back to the alley or into their garages, and we can actually keep the curbs clean. So that's an improvement I want to do. And that's what I said, I'm trying to save the machine, but keep the town clean all at the same time. And I think that plan would work, and if it proves it doesn't, we simply go back to the way we're doing it.
I'm surely in favor of that.
Good. Okay, so, all right, and that's really it. Like I said, the big water leak on 160 on Tuesday, that will affect residents pretty much from Prospect down to 3rd, and from Batterson over to a little on the other side of Bronx. Okay, so it won't affect the schools, it won't affect, we're gonna just, I like to do them during the day. The idea, we won't start until 9, and that leaves everybody that needs to go to work in the morning, chance to go ahead and get showered and cleaned and ready to go to work. we do the work while they're at work, and then have it all buttoned back up before they come home for the evening to cook dinner. That's the idea. So, all right,
Thank you, Rob.
with that, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Appreciate you.
You do good work.
Thanks. Thank you.
You get a form?
Anita?
Need a bell.
So Forrest did my report for me, so I'm gonna sit down. As Forrest said, the clerk's office has moved. Gary got to come and see it today. He came and took a look. And the ad for deputy clerk has been placed, and it will close on April 26th. We're hoping to interview on the 3rd of May, and hopefully the tentative start date would be May 14th for a deputy clerk. The goal date is as of June 1st. We'll start taking payments for court on the west side of the building. So all city clerk and court daily function will enter in on the west side of the building off of Chico Camino. We're gonna put signage out there, so it'll have a sign out there that'll show city clerk, municipal court, and recreation. And we'll have the same hours as over here. Everything will be exactly the same, except for court payments will be taken on that side of the building. That way, we have more control of the court payments as they come in. So if the judge tells a defendant they have to pay on a certain date, they come in and pay, but they may not be paying on that certain date. Therefore, they've violated anything that the judge had put forth in front of them to comply with. So this is a way we're going to have a little bit more control, or a lot more control on how that's taken in, so we can monitor that. And the same with the courtroom. I've put out on my listserv at other clerks' offices to see if I can get some help with getting some equipment, a new dais and some chairs. We're going to look at making the old council chambers into the courtroom. It's more secure. The defendants are going to be having access to the entire city hall. If you've been back there, the foyer is actually contained. You can't get into the city hall without being let in. We'll have, when day of court, we'll have an officer back there that will wand people into the courtroom. They'll go from the foyer directly into the courtroom, back out, make their payments, and out the door. So it'll be a more controlled area for court as well. And hopefully we'll start that June 1st as well. I will be attending a nuts and bolts class for city clerks on May 4th in Grand Junction. And I forgot to add this to your packet, but I've had some of you ask about business cards. And I just want you to take a look at that and see if that's okay with you. If that's okay, I'll go ahead and get business cards ordered for all of you, if that's something that you still want as business cards.
Who requested business cards?
Who requested? Our
Not me,
what? You do it?
So if you all just want to email me and let me know if you do want business cards, then I will order them for you, and we'll go from there. In your packet, you'll see I have a report from Connor Animal Shelter. It's just their monthly report. The CML conference, the registration is May 9th. I have not heard from any of you on whether or not you want to go to the CML conference.
You heard from me.
Oh, that's right, I did hear from
You did hear from me.
So, if you do want to go, please let me know before May 9th so I can get you registered. There are no hotel rooms available in Vail, so you would be staying in Eagle, is where they are now putting people for the conference. they have hotels in Eagle that they have rooms set up for the conference. So you'll have to travel from Eagle into Vail for the conference if you do go. I just need to know by May 9th or before May 9th so I can get you registered if you want to go. Business license, they're all issued, most everything's been issued for the year, so all the businesses are up to date. Liquor license, they've been steady, all the renewals are coming in, special events are starting to come in for the summer. We have the special event that's already been approved for Spring in the Valley Rodeo, hosted by the Community Fund. The Chamber has submitted a special event permit for Taste of SLV that will be in Chapman Park on June 30th. And Sky High Stampede has submitted a special use event permit for Stampede on July 26th and through the 29th. Municipal courts, we've been plugging right along there. From January 1st to March 31st, we've collected about $38,000 in fees and surcharges. The one thing that I will say that I've seen since Judge Zollers has been here, she has been having the defendants who have been charged with theft or shoplifting pay the restitution back to the businesses if the items weren't recovered. I have returned over $400 worth of restitution money to Big R. So that is a huge thing that has been taken on by Judge Zollers, is to get restitution for the businesses that have been stolen from. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Nita.
Yeah.
Thank you.
James?
Evening, Mayor, Council. Happy to get up here before my battery died. It's a little bit of a long meeting tonight. You have my written report for you with the routine stuff that we've been working on, a little bit of update and highlight on that report. Today, IT was asked, how many devices do we support? I would wager a guess, there's 3 IT technicians working for you. Do you have an idea of how many devices we support? I'm gonna say 1,000. You're very close, it's over 800 for the 3 of us, so it's quite a few devices. I was a little shocked, there's a little bit more creep there going on than what I imagined until we sit down and actually count it. So when I say that things are dying on us and we're replacing them as fast as we can, we really are, and I wanted you to know what was going on there. We recently, Forrest authorized us to go and help out your info center. That has been completely rewired. They have a full wired network, and we found some problems that they had ongoing with their bandwidth and assisted them in getting that cleaned up, so that's all working much better for them. Our VMware server came in, as we discussed at our last meeting. That server is completely installed now, and the upgrade that we were worried about completing for the entire data center is now complete. Let's see here. And we've been very busy here in town lately with all the moving of the offices. We've moved the city clerk, the deputy clerk, the judge's chambers, utility billing, person and rec, PD records clerk moved today. And additionally, we've installed a new camera system in the back of the building so that we've added some security back there for the clerks as they move in back there. And that includes cameras in the courtroom that we're still working on building back there. That's all up and running now. Today we participated in an e-waste recycling event. WSB Recycling was taking loads of e-waste at $120 for a truck and trailer load. Public Works saved us today, provided the manpower and the equipment necessary. I'm not sure how many loads they took out there. 2?
2 loads. Truck and trailer.
And so that was old phone systems that were sitting around in closets, some very, very old computers. We found computer number 1. It was, it actually said 1. It was in the collapsing garage next door. And so that also, those type of things went off to e-waste today. We found old letter folders that were in the building and nooks and crannies taking up space. Things like that from City Hall went. Public Works took quite a bit from somebody, I guess, your yard.
We had some in our old yard, and then we took a ton from the old PD, some from here, and that was the bulk of it. The old PD had the biggest.
And normally all this e-waste is charged by weight. So when we get an opportunity to utilize these events that are just by the truckload, of course we want to do that as much as possible. So that's what we were doing for you today. Well, there went the battery. And so the last thing I want to mention is Tuesday, the wind event we had in town knocked out power here at City Hall. The generator that we got VRO to put in for us and maintain for us kicked in just as it was supposed to. We didn't quite get to test it ourselves like we had planned on it, but it did run the entire building. Pretty much didn't cause any interruptions in anything. Between that and the battery supplies we had on our computers, everything held up well.
Awesome.
Very good.
So that's, any questions for me? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Victor, you got any reports? Gary?
No, I just wanted to mention something that I've noticed regarding flags around town. I noticed because mine was blown down in all that wind, and I had to just leave it off for a while. But I noticed them as I'm driving around town that I don't know exactly how to go about this, but I just want to work out some way to make new flags available for some of the ones that are out there that are kind of embarrassing. Not the least of which is out in front of City Hall.
And can I touch on that?
Yeah.
Because that's actually, the wind we had Tuesday, it really tore our flags up. The weather folks were calling for another windstorm today.
Oh.
So they're actually in that room right there, and
Okay.
they're ready to go, and they will be back out.
Wow.
I just didn't want to put new flags and then have them destroyed tonight.
Exactly.
So.
No,
yes,
that just,
I'm well aware of that.
I've seen a few when I'm driving around town.
All over it, right now.
I hope to be, yes.
There's one in particular that I've seen kind of coming apart, and it's nothing but strings. You know. I mean, that some way we need to just get out and knock on some doors and, you know, figure out a way to help them. Either take them down or replace them.
The
Anyhow,
ones at the city parks will be fixed.
that's great.
Sometimes the Boy Scouts get involved with that kind of stuff, so you need to get in touch with Boy Scout leaders. I know that because we did that too.
No, good idea.
They actually kind of get involved with that kind of stuff, and they actually can get together with, like the flag, what do they call that ceremony? When they destroy the flag, yeah. We were involved with some of that when my boys were girls, so. That's all it takes is a phone call to a couple Cub Scout or Boy Scout leaders, and they can help you
Well, I
with
work
that.
with Mark over at the school district, so he's heavily involved with that. But I can talk to him about
We usually have some money left over from selling all those wreaths at Christmas time, that they can buy a flag or two, so.
Okay.
And popcorn.
I'm big on flags, so I just.
My turn? You keep looking at me.
Yes, it is your turn.
Okay, I just want to take a couple of seconds to tell all of you, Unita and Forrest and Mike and Chief and IT and Rob, you guys make me tired just listening to you. I am absolutely amazed at the caring and the amount of work you guys go to keep this city running smoothly and save money. And for all you do, I just want to say thank you. It's just breathtaking how much you work together and you make things happen and roll. And I think that happens under Forrest's leadership, and I just want to say thank you.
Well said.
Well said.
Well said.
That's my turn. I'm gonna be as long-winded as Gary.
Oh.
You guys, I appreciate everybody that comes in here and stays and hangs out and does it. And Fennell, I want to kudos to you and your crew, the boys that you keep an eye on and what you do for the community, as well as everybody else here. Got the utmost respect for you guys, and to Rob and the city crew for what they've been doing, cleaning up and taking care of stuff and checking on people. When the windstorm came and the one went across my neighbor's house, the tree, they stayed there to make sure that those people were okay before they went on, and it was totally off of the city right away. So everybody has been doing a fantastic job. And for those people that left, if they watch it on YouTube, I appreciate the community input. That's what we need, is the community involvement. It's key to making the success of this. Not to take away from anybody. They all put their time in, and I appreciate that. Thank you all very much. So, with that, meeting adjourned till
Next time.
May 3rd.
May
Thank
3rd.
you all.
Okay.